The September 28th meeting of the Litchfield Board of Selectmen. We'll begin our meeting by please asking everyone to rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's it. That's the magic number.
We have a full house tonight. I'm going to do my Steve Weber impersonation.
I was back in the 60s, I'd be grooving.
Everyone on the line can mute your lines, please.
John, mute him. Somebody's doing feedback.
Must be a
Thank you.
dentist.
There we go.
We have a review and approval of consent items. We have an AP manifest for September 29th, 2020. $122,000, $132.27. Everybody get to read that? Any questions on it?
Nope.
If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the manifest.
So move.
Second. Motion by Mr. LaSalle's, second by Mr. Lynch. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0-0. We have a PR manifest from October 1st, 2020 of $64,526.17. We'll entertain a motion to accept that.
Make a motion.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. LaSalle's. Any further discussion? All right, without none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0-0. All right, next is the tax collector reconciliation for July and August. Mrs. Brand. Hello.
Karen's got that.
Karen's got it? Oh,
Karen's got that.
you guys are pulling tricks on me, huh? My first meeting and you're pulling tricks. Okay.
Good, Karen.
No ice cream.
Oh,
What do you have?
No, I don't have it. It's in your stuff.
can you stop?
It was the stuff
Oh,
we
It's our
signed.
reconciliation
It's the
that
stuff
we
we
sign
signed.
off on.
Mm-hmm. So we're good.
Yep.
Very good. All right. So town clerk reconciliation, same thing?
Same thing.
Very good. We're moving. Next item is the transfer of funds. We have $10,000 to the General Assistance Expendable Trust Fund.
Yep.
Troy, do we need a motion for that?
I think you can just go through all of these and then you can
Motion?
look for a motion at the end.
Perfect. We have $25,000 to the Technology and Communication Expendable Trust Fund. $50,000 to the Building Systems Expendable Trust Fund and $5,000 to the Library Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund. Does anybody have any discussion on these items? Okay, if not, we'll entertain a motion to accept them.
I'll motion, yes.
Motion by Mr. Lynch.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. LaSalle's. Further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0-0. Land use change tax. That is all the paperwork we signed earlier, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Next one.
Do we need anything on that? We don't need a motion for that, right? Okay. The next one's a good one. FEMA grant acceptance of $6,024.68. Mr. Brown?
Yep. So this is the refund that we received that Karen's worked with department heads submitted to FEMA. It represents, I believe, the expenses and salaries that were eligible for reimbursement.
Okay.
This is our second reimbursement.
I know it's our first, it's project number 2.
I know those two copies of the checks are in the,
Is that through what date?
Well, this, you want to go ahead? and
Yeah,
explain
this
it?
was project number 2. So this one was, the first date was March through May. So this one, I believe, was June through July that I did. We haven't gotten project 1 back yet.
So the FEMA grant's a little different than the Gopher, where the Gopher was very restrictive, starting in March, and you had a deadline of the first deadline, June. FEMA's been more open. For whatever reason, this reimbursement is project number 2, and we haven't received project number 1 yet. So
So this is just a formal acceptance, even though we haven't gotten it yet?
No, we got the check for
we
this.
received the
Got
check.
check.
Yeah.
Okay, I
This
see.
was 75% of what we asked for.
Okay.
75%. Okay. So we'll entertain a motion to accept this grant.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. LaSalle's and a second by Mr. Lynch. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the acceptance, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 400.
We even got the check, so. Don't say
Next
no.
is the town clerk grant acceptance of $5,000. I think I went out of order, but that's okay. I'm running the meeting. Ms. Brand.
So this is another grant that I applied for that was from Center for Protecting Civic Life. And what it does is, actually the individual that sold us our voting booths had sent this off to me, and so I applied for it, and they sent us back a letter last week that they were gonna send us $5,000.
Very good.
So, and it can be used for poll worker recruitment funds, hazard pay, training expenses, temporary staffing, vote by mail, voter absentee equipment and supplies, and election administration equipment. So
So it's already spent.
pretty much, no, it's not, because we still have that other grant that we applied for through the state. And we got, after the September election, they sent us a letter that from that one, we got $3,678. Now they just need to approve the $5,000 for this.
All right. So we'll entertain a motion to accept the $5,000 grant.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. LaSalle, second by Mr. Lynch. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 400.
You can get back up to
I
go
don't
for.
even need to ask if there's any no's. Next, we'll go back where we should have
More
been.
motion.
The Gopher grant acceptance of $46,916.89.
Okay, so this is the Gopher funds that we were talking about earlier, and this is the first one or the second?
Number 2.
Number 2. Still waiting for number 1.
Yeah, we
So
got number 1.
we did.
Yeah. Yeah, we did 3 FEMA, 3 of Gopher. We've had two Gophers reimbursed, 1 FEMA, so.
And we already have this check, right?
Yeah, we already have this.
we
So
just
this
got
is from the governor, correct?
This
Yes,
is the
The
government.
state.
yes.
Yep.
So Karen has put together a third request, which we have not received.
Mhm.
And that request is the large amount,
Mhm.
which we're looking to get reimbursed for all of our public safety hours that we worked during the pandemic.
Okay.
And
Very good. We'll entertain a motion to accept this money.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. LaSalle, second by Mr. Lynch. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 400. Right. Public input will occur no earlier than 6:45.
Got 2 minutes.
We have 2 minutes? Okay. Any requests for additional items or other business? I know we had received some correspondence from Mr. Miller in town about a logging road permit.
I could probably add to that.
Do we want to do that now, or do we want to wait for that? The public input? Because I think
Wait till-
he is on the line, I believe. Okay, very good. So we'll do that in 5 minutes, okay? Hold on, Seth. So we have the September 14th and the September 21st minutes. Has everyone had a chance to go over them? And do you have any changes or alterations? Okay. So we'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So move.
I'll second it.
Salas, and second by Mr. Lynch. And any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0.
Question on that. Do you need a signature on at least one copy, right, of the minutes?
Yes, it's in the
It's in the handout, the green.
Oh, it is?
green. Yeah.
Okay.
Next, we have the capital improvement plan adoption. And we have a couple of members here tonight.
Can I just ask before we start, because I just got a comment that someone who was on the phone says it's like a really bad echo. I don't know if John Brunel's on or not.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, we've been working on that.
Oh, you are?
I think we've got it corrected by now.
All right.
Okay.
Push the button.
Do you want to, just by way of motion, do you want to do the public input before you do the capital? Because the capital improvement will take
It's going to take a while.
probably 45 minutes. That's
Okay.
exactly.
Let's get Seth back on.
Okay.
Get that done.
All right, so we'll hold that for a minute and we will go into public input. John, is there anybody out there? Oh, is he still muted? Is the TV still muted?
No, I brought it up.
Okay. All right.
Just,
board.
Oh, we have Mr. Seth Miller on the line. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
All right. My name's Seth Miller, and I'm currently working with the town to obtain a building permit for lot 1868. There's simultaneous things that are going on right now, but one thing that is kind of timely is we need to get our timber harvested. As directed by our forester, this time of year creates the least amount of impact to the land. We need board's written permission to establish a logging road through what's been referred to as a right-of-way or a paper street from the Garden Road extension that extends off of Grove and Homestead Court before they can even get to our property to start harvesting timber. Our forester, Hopkinton Forestry and Lands, has agreed to keep a separate tally of any timber that has been harvested on that right-of-way, and any profit that is generated from that, they will write a check directly to the town of Litchfield. So looking for your help and approval for them to do that.
Mr. Miller, this is for your own personal residence, right? This isn't for a subdivision or anything?
Correct.
Okay.
This is for, technically I'm representing my mother at this point. She is the owner and the applicant for all the process right now. But it is a single lot right now. Its current use is vacant. And at this time, the only plan is to put one single family dwelling on it. We have no subdivision in the works, and we do not ever wish to have that.
Okay.
I can add a little history to this if you want. Every time they do a subdivision, you cannot landlock a piece of land. This right-of-way was part of the original subdivision down the end where they gave access to that land. There was a lot line adjustment because there was two lots in there at the family estate and stuff. But what they want to do now is just cut the lumber to get access to. This is the best way to get to it. It's a 50-foot right-of-way that exists there now. And it's just going to, Seth's real thing is to build a house back there in the future. But he wants to log it too, because it hasn't been logged in years. So he wants to manage the property better. And this is the only way to get to it. Okay? So this is the smart. It's just, well, what they're asking is to get permission from the town to go over that 50-foot strip of land and whatever they do on that. Okay, the trees, we get the income from the trees, the town does, on the right-of-way. They'll keep a separate tab on that. And then he can go in and log his land. That's basically it. It's a simple, not unusual to have. I know I have a piece of land here that the town did landlock me, okay, in the middle of the woods. And there was the planning board was bad during that day. And I can't get to it now because it was landlocked. But the other two lots that they got in the end, they got two lots that have frontage on a huge piece of land because of vernal pool. But I'm just saying, I just know the history of this. In Milford, we used to do this all the time. When you subdivide a piece of land in Londonderry, you didn't landlock somebody else's land. It's against the law. So in order for them to go out and you use it to log it, that's what this is all about.
So how is he going to get to his land when he builds his house?
To be on that same right of way that's in now, instead of building a road, which is not wise for the town to build a road to go for one house lot. We don't want to pave that. We've got a few of those in town now. It'd just be a right of way that he'd put a driveway on, get an easement from us, okay, to get to it for one house.
So the town owns the land there?
Yep,
Right away.
the right of way. They own the right of way.
I had sent out the email that he sent me to everyone, Troy and the rest of the board. Mr. Weber weighed in with some questions. First was about abutters. Have they been notified and given an opportunity to weigh in? Seth, have you notified the abutters?
I have spoken with the abutters, that we are planning to forest it. They had no questions. I showed them, the area that we intended to cut. But no formal, it was a conversation face to face. There hasn't been a formal notice, given to any abutters for forestering, but I wasn't under the impression that, harvesting timber on our land, required an abutter notification.
It does
It
not
would be
by
for
law.
building though, correct? We have a member of the planning board with us. They would be notified as abutters for the building, correct?
Only for the building, but not for the logging.
He's not asking for a building permit
No,
at this
he's not
point.
asking for that yet.
So for logging it, there's no.
No, there's no requirement for that.
No, but I think if you're gonna come from the planning board, certainly, I think you have to notify others.
Yeah.
If it's a planning board action, yes.
Yep. Okay. And then the second point was Jay from NRPC is supposed to be in attendance tonight. Is he on here to weigh in, just to weigh in? He has add his opinion?
I don't think
I
so.
don't see him there. Okay.
It's too early for
All right. And then the third one would be, is a road bond required? I don't know that it would be, not at this point, no.
all the logging operations that we've had in town, we never required a road bond.
Okay. And then the last one was, does the Board of Selectmen have authority to grant permission? And I think we do, don't we? I believe we do.
I don't know. It's good. I'm sure we do, but I think it's a good question because a little bit that I've been involved in this, we've learned that the town has a right of way for the future extension of this road.
Mhm.
And then legal counsel, our planning staff and building staff, we've kind of got an email thread going on with zoning board of adjustment, planning board, about how you would actually construct legally a private driveway over this right of way. And we've hit a couple legal issues where the board really can't grant the right for a private driveway. So there was the option of the town, the selectmen, I don't want to get into all the steps that have been laid out to Mr. Miller in a letter, but where basically the selectmen would take action and you would dissolve this right of way and half of the land would revert back to both abutters. And at the same exact time, everything be worked out so that the land then that went back to the abutters could be deeded to Mr. Miller's property and become permanent, with his property.
Okay.
That would give him give him 50 feet of land on frontage on Garden
For his driveway.
Drive.
Yeah.
Then he would require a variance because, a building permit requires 150 feet of frontage.
Okay.
So it looks like there's, in order to make this happen, and I believe it can happen, there's just going to be some legal steps that are going to involve planning board, zoning board of adjustment, and board of selectmen.
So for
But what we're
now-
talking about this evening is basically
That's what
Mr. Miller
building,
wants to
Logging.
log his property, and he's formally just requesting if he can clear the right of way enough so he can get equipment into his property.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a good legal question just to make sure that, you know, this right of way is not restrictive to just one particular use.
Okay.
But I think that's something Laura can answer very quickly tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
So can we make a motion to allow him to do this pending legal approval?
That's what I would do.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we allow it to be done pending legal for the logging only and back.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Lynch,
Second.
second by Mr. Pinciero. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will entertain, everybody signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0-0. Mr. Miller, you can cut your trees.
So
All right. Thank you very much for all your help to this, and I look forward to working with all of you on the next steps as Troy had mentioned we're working on. But this is a big first step. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And just so you know, this, Mr. Miller was, when I was talking with Mr. Miller, this is the logger that I reported to the board last meeting about trying to piggyback on having this logger come down.
Mhm.
If he can have enough timber on Mr. Miller's property, our right of way, and the land there at the transfer facility, again, we could actually get some trees cleared and actually probably make some revenue
That'd be great.
at no cost.
That'd be great.
We talked about this for years at the intersection in the first place.
All right, is there any other public input?
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Cutter, 6 Moose Hollow Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. Didn't come here to talk about public input, but nevertheless, there was an action taken. I'd like to get some guidance on. So the board just accepted rather quickly a transfer of funds totaling $90,000 through various, and taking that money and moving it to expendable trust funds. $10,000 to a general assistance expendable trust fund, $25,000 to a technology and communications fund, $50,000 to a building systems trust fund, and $5,000 to the library trust fund. Where is that money coming from?
Warrant articles at town meeting.
That's warrant? Okay. Why is it being done now?
So this process is, we had warrant articles that were approved in March. And typically what we'll do is we'll wait till the end of the year before we actually ask permission to transfer them from the general fund to these trust funds or capital reserves. There really isn't, the voters have already expressed, permission to do it. It's just really a formality where, it's a legal notice to the trustees, deposit these funds as pursuant to the vote of the March vote. That's all it is.
That's crystal clear. I just didn't expect that to happen in September.
We just, for cash flow purposes.
Okay.
Yeah.
School does the same at the end of the year.
Yeah, in June, right. Right.
There's a few things. We didn't spend a lot of money this year, even out of the things that were approved, such as these things. We haven't moved them yet. We haven't done the old town hall painting yet. We didn't know what we were going to have for money and what we needed for money. So we put a freeze early on.
Right.
So if we needed it, we would have had it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anytime. Questions are good. I always tell you that.
Just want to make sure it wasn't a general fund move. I'm like, wait a minute.
So, anything else for public input? All right, very well. Now we will move on to the capital improvement plan adoption. We have some members here from the committee, Mr. Brian Bork from the school board, Ms. Croce from the planning board, and Mr. Cutter from the budget committee. Gentlemen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us this evening. The Capital Improvement Planning Committee has worked very hard and diligently in putting together a program for this budget cycle. I want to introduce the members of the committee, obviously myself as planning board representative, Michael Proto is the chair. Sean Flynn is our vice chair. Thank you. For the citizens representative voting, Steve Weber from the Board of Selectmen is a representative voting member. Brian Bork from the school board, voting member. Peter Stone, citizens rep, is a voting member. Mr. Cutter from the budget committee is a non-voting member. We have Mr. Troy Brown, our town administrator, who's non-voting, and of course, Jay Minkara of the National Regional Planning Commission director. He is a non-voting member. So that makes up the committee of members for the capital improvement program. When we started this process, we wanted to look at what was going to be the intent or the vision of this capital improvement program, or this capital improvement committee coming together and putting together some sort of plan. So we worked on a vision statement, and we looked at what would be the blueprint for the next 6 years through 2026. We looked at, thank you. We looked at what's the future growth of the town going to look like? What's resources going to be? We wanted to prioritize what were the long-term versus the short-term goals, economic development, cost impact, a whole variety of things and sources, looking at things such as heritage preservation and community character, land use and growth management, preservation of natural resources for the town, economic development for the town, community services and facilities, infrastructure needs, and the replacement and continuing maintenance of town assets. So we put forth a recommended list of capital needs across the town and the school district. Basically, the idea was to try to look at and protect the town's investments, and to look at tax impact in a controlled environment. The CIP wanted to be transparent to the town of Litchfield, to the Litchfield residents, and we wanted to welcome feedback from the Board of Selectmen, the school board, budget committee, and of course the legislative body, the voters of the town, to be recommended for, so that these things, the approval of recommended warrant articles in March. So really what we were trying to do is trying to be fiscally responsible. And I think that was the goal as we phase this project, as we phase this plan going forward. So a little quick history. The CIP is actually a creature of statute. It's statutory authority. RSA 674, sections 5 and 6 define the purpose, or I should say the authorization and the purpose for the capital improvement plan. It allows the legislative body, the voters of the town, to authorize either the planning board or a alternative board, a capital improvement committee, to look at projects projected over a period of at least 6 years, and to look at things such as what are the basic needs of the town, what are the priorities for the town in terms of their importance, order of importance and need of urgency, and also cost impact to the town, what are the sources of funding, different a variety of things that would allow the town to develop a plan. Now, the statutory authority originally says that the statute says may authorize the planning board or an alternative body. And in 2014, by town warrant article, the legislative body, the voters of this town, delegated the authority to the Board of Selectmen, which is the governing body here, to handle the capital improvement program. It was formed at the direction of the select board. And really this committee was created to develop a master plan for the key projects spanning both the town and the school. And so what the board decided was that we're only going to look at anticipated expenses from various departments that are $50,000 or more. And that was what's important there is that this is really a planning document, and really, we have to emphasize that it is simply planning, and so that all items within the plan need to be voted on by the respective boards, the Board of Selectmen, Budget Committee, the voters of the town. So in terms of accurate numbers, and I don't know if you're going to have that discussion this evening about the DRA and what the tax impacts of the town are, but right now this is not accurately reflecting a tax impact or actual funded project at this stage. It's really a planning document. I just want to make that clear. So the board got together back in January. We discussed the scope of what the committee was going to do. We looked at a vision statement. We put together a vision statement. Then we started to meet with the various departments in town, the police department, highway, fire, etc. And we had them come in and present what their projects, what their expenditures are that they felt were urgent in the sense. And so we went through the different projects. We discussed proposals. We discussed options to those plans. And eventually what we did was we came up with a summary of all the projects. We had NRPC put together that summary. And then we prioritized those projects. What was the most important to what was the least important? And then we had discussions on that. We voted to accept that ranking of projects, both from the school and the town. And essentially, that was what we presented to a public hearing. We also presented this prior to that to the planning board for recommendation because it is a planning board function. So we had the planning board look at it. We had a public hearing on the 23rd of September. And now we're here tonight to present to you folks for acceptance of this plan. And I think it's the goal of the CIP moving forward to actually have this as a continuing process. And I think that's really important for Litchfield. I think this first time around was sort of a learning phase, but I think as we move forward with the capital improvement program as an actual living document, as an actual body, a committee that meets quarterly, I think it's going to address a lot of the needs of the town and the school, and it's going to be a very helpful document to you folks and to the budget committee and so forth. So what is the capital improvement plan? Well, the plan, I think, outlines a schedule of the proposed capital investments in land, buildings, and equipment over a period of at least 6 years, which follows the statute. And the projects are classified by their need, as I said, urgency and timing. And they're based on information provided by town department heads, the input of various boards, committees, and commissions, looking at information related to the cost, the need of sources of funding, etc. So why do towns do this? Why do they exercise a capital improvement plan? Well, there are two reasons, and they're actually by law. Okay, it's required by law. The first is in the statute under 476:5. It talks about, and I have this. Hold on here. Make it easy for myself. So shall be to aid the mayor or selectmen and the budget committee in their consideration of the annual budget. So it really has to do with the budget process. And that's number one. The other important piece to this, why this is important, impact fees. Okay, under state law in New Hampshire, in order to collect impact fees, there has to be a capital improvement program in place in order to continue to assess those fees on development, especially new development. So the impact fees allow the town to offset costs to new buildings, equipment, purchases, and so forth, capital investments necessary to accommodate new residential development, and that something that would a cost that would otherwise be borne by the taxpayer, essentially. And another reason that this is important is we want this, and I think the committee had many discussions on this, we want this to be a living document, okay? We want the capital improvement plan to be at least to meet quarterly, to review the plan and proposed amendments as needed to ensure that the CIP remains current and relevant to planning and budgetary tools. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bork, and he's going to discuss the school part of this. So,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Bork.
Good evening. So we also spent an entire meeting going through all the different projects and grading them and listing them and prioritizing them. And the school became the number one priority and listed as urgent. The fire department, the police department fell into second place, also as urgent. But the school, I think for all of those of you that have been in this town for quite a while, and that's all of you, that the new elementary school has been talked about, voted on several times. It's at the point right now that it is urgent to replace that building. Building a new elementary would be other priorities in here. There's different cost savings. Obviously, there's at LMS, and one of them is by going pre-K-5 is eliminating the portables down at LMS that we've been paying a lease on for many years that are at the point right now they're dilapidated, really should be replaced. Another problem with where the building sits at GMS right now, it's either in a flood zone or very close to a flood zone. It's definitely in a high water table, which there's water moisture problems within that building. Not to mention that the HVAC in throughout that building is antiquated. That if that building were to continue being utilized, you're looking at probably about $1.5 million to $2 million worth of renovations just for HVAC and the boilers and everything else in that portion of the building. So the total cost over the 6 years is $24,324,629. And that's with receiving approximately 30% of state aid. And that state aid would not be able to come towards us until 2023. And that's because there's a whole process that you have to go through as far as with the state to apply for state aid. So the first 3 years of the plan would be for engineering costs of $70,000. The second year in 2022, $125,000. And the third year, another $125,000. For a total cost of $320,000 for engineering and just construction overview. So again, that's the number one priority for the school district, is replacing that school. And the location of that school would be across from LMS on the property we own. So basically both schools would be up on top of the hill. There's also a road that is approved anyway, an access road from below GMS that goes up to LMS. Because right now you only have one access road to LMS, which really you should have 2 points of exit, but we only have one. And so the plan is the existing road that would bring you to LMS, I believe would not be GMS, and then going up to LMS is the access road. Now, what would happen with the old building? That hasn't even been determined yet or discussed. I mean, there's several different things it could be used for. The next priority for the school district is ventilation and equipment at LMS and CHS. Both those buildings, we'll start with LMS. I mean, LMS is like 30-something years old. Again, the equipment is basically antiquated. Parts are almost impossible to get. There's a lot of manual work that has to be done as far as opening vents and just different parts of equipment that right now have to be done manually as far as the operation part of it. They're in the process of replacing one of the boards that will update. Kind of thing what I'm saying here. It's to, I guess, electronically, or just like through a computer, like measure, change, open vents, close vents. Right now, that's all being done manually. And the same goes with CHS. And the other priority that we place on this, especially with COVID right now, as far as ventilation, it's very important to make sure we have clean air, that we have airflow that's, again, clean, and just make it safe for everyone involved. And the cost for these two projects, LMS is $1,365,000, and CHS is $1,282,500. Then to keep in mind, and we've been saying this for a couple of years now with the school board, we keep talking about CHS being new. It's new, but it's 21 years old and new. So after 21 years, things start going and things need to be replaced. They just replaced a part of the panel to, again, make it operational through the system instead of being manual, and that was at a cost of about $70,000. They're looking at a part right now for LMS that's about the same price. And it's extremely costly. And everything we're doing right now is with the intention in the switches that it'll be compatible with any system changes that take place afterwards. The next is CHS parking lot. And this is basically a repair cracks, a seal coat, and towards the track area is where it's deteriorating and we're starting to lose pavement and losing pavement. And before you know it, I mean, it's just going to be dirt back there. So that project is desirable, and that's at $85,000. The next area is the LMS kitchen. They're looking to expand it to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit more conducive to working. Within that kitchen, it's very tight, and it's just really not much room to move around with when they start putting all the workers back there. And it's been an area of concern for some time now. That cost is $300,000, and it was rated as desirable. The next area is the CHS gym bleachers. Again, after 20 years of those bleachers going in, going out, there are parts right now that basically can't be had. And they're at a point right now where it's a safety hazard. So they're looking to replace those at the cost of $206,000, and that's rated as necessary. Other priorities that we discussed was a turf field, that was rated as deferrable. Then the next is LMS additional classes, LMS parking lot, GMS parking lot. And these items were given no prices because, again, this is the trickle-down effect that I had mentioned before. If the elementary school fails, the next process is about a $3.5 million project to add classrooms to LMS to get the portables out, get children inside the building where they're safer and they're all confined in one area. And that would be right outside the gym facing the parking lot. So again, if the elementary school passes, then there's no need for these classrooms. But then it brings you to parking, that GMS parking, obviously the lot needs some work. It needs to be repaved. Some sections of it, they did one part of it a couple of years ago, but then the far part out towards the bridge needs to be done and probably expanded. And that obviously would not have to take place because then you're going to be building a parking lot at the same time you build the school. And there'll also be a cost savings where you're doing paving up there already, that once the portables were removed, then that area would be repaved also. And then we also have, capital repairs reserve fund. They were looking to place $100,000 per year over the 6-year period. And again, this capital reserve fund is for repairs. I think, as you all know, once again, we're talking about aging buildings, and it doesn't take long to go through $100,000 when they turn around and tell you that you need $500,000 for a roof or more. So that's what we have for the school. And I know Dr. Jetty's on the phone. I don't know if he has anything he'd like to add or not. He says he wasn't.
Thanks, Brian. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Perfect. So just a couple of points on it. I think that in looking at the survey results that came back in relative to the plan, it really did show that the public support for the initiatives such as the new elementary school were pretty strong. And I would just hope the select board members would take a look at that. The other thing is that we sort of dipped our toe in the water last year when we put a warrant article out asking for public support for a feasibility study to look at the elementary school, and that passed the warrant. So we're now engaged in that process. So when you kind of put it all together, it certainly seems as if the project is lining up with a lot of support.
Does the board have any questions?
Yep.
I have a couple. just recently, before school got started, we had an issue with power at GMS.
That's correct.
Could you explain to the other selectmen about that?
Yep. During a storm, a tree went down, took a wire down. Unfortunately, it also took power out at GMS, but at the same time, what it did is it knocked a switch out. And this is a switch that's supposed to make certain the building is grounded, and if they lose power, the switch goes off. That way you just go back in, manually flip it back on to go on. Problem was they couldn't flip the switch back. It's, again, old. I don't think there was upkeep to it where you have to lubricate it on a regular basis. So unfortunately, that piece of switch, again, can only be purchased through one company, which fortunately that we were able to find one. At the beginning, they told us the timeline of about 8 weeks out, and school was ready to start like in a week or two. But fortunately, we were able to acquire one. But again, it was an item that was not expected to go. So it was an expense that was unexpected. And I believe the tune was, and Dr. Jetty can confirm this, I think it was around $70,000 for the switch and all the rest, whatever else, the labor involved. But I mean, that's, if you're talking GMS and the age of that building and equipment, that's all it took was, losing power. And we thought nothing of it. Okay, let's just turn things back on. And once everyone in the area got their power back, we didn't.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that sort of is not, it's more than just a switch. It's like the master breaker.
Right, yeah.
All the power coming into the school went through that. And as close as I can estimate, that was built in like the early 70s, I think.
Yeah, it might be a little bit newer than that, I think. But
you could see that it's been old, and the failure of this breaker kind of illustrates the situation we're in with GMS, in that through the years, we have the old 1935 building, which is basically not usable. And then we have one section, and then we have another section, and then we have another section. And all of these wings don't fit together like a neat little puzzle. And above and beyond that, the newest part of GMS is close to 50 years old, 40, 45 years old. So, I mean, there's only so long that we can get out of that. And the failure of that switch, to me, illustrates exactly the situation we're in there. As we all know, we've got a high water table there. Through the years, we've tried to patch it up and so forth. But the other thing, while you're here, I just want to compliment the school board on the actions they've taken with, I've talked to a lot of other districts, and the fact that we've got kids in school and we've given parents the option of having kids remotely, I think it's a courageous thing that the board took, and I think it's wonderful. Also, from my front porch, I have the ability to see the goings on at Griffith Memorial School. And I mean, I was really scared because I knew we were going to have multitudes of parents that were going to not want their kids riding the bus. They were going to want to drop them off. And we only have so much room, and we've got all these buses coming and going. And I thought, how in the world is this going to happen? Well, if you go up there at 2:45 in the afternoon, you see an absolute rodeo that takes place, and all these cars are moving in unison, but it works. And I just want to compliment the staff and the board for what they've done, because I can't, and Andrew, you go through that every day, and it's amazing. It truly is what they've done. But keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
That nothing happens anymore. And the traffic seems to be, cooperating. But, as far as one thing, Brian, have you formed a building committee for GMS?
Not yet, no.
I would suggest that be a good thing to have. Form a building committee, and have people get the community involved.
Yep, no, we plan to, and we will.
Okay, sooner the better, I think.
Yep. So just if I can make a point as far as, you mentioned pick up and drop off, I'll give hats off to the two principals at both LMS and GMS. I mean, that was the new principal at GMS spent some time, planning and tried a couple different ideas and then talked to the bus company and they were going to do it one way. Then they said, no, let's try it this way. I mean, to the point where even utilizing the playground, to park the buses to get the kids and so we can get drop off and pick up. So it's gone pretty smooth when you consider, like you said, there's a lot more kids right now that aren't taking the bus that would prefer getting dropped off. And I think they've done a great job at both schools as far as making that as smooth a transition as possible.
Knock on wood, and with traffic on 3A, I mean, I just was freaking out because I couldn't imagine how it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But they've done a great job.
They did.
I actually got a couple of phone calls because cars were speeding by the drop-off lanes, and I got a hold of Chief Sargent, and I guess he sent somebody down there for a while.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can do that more often because safety is paramount concern. I did have a couple of questions for you. You said the elementary school is 24 million?
Correct. That's go
And
ahead.
is that with or without the 30% state?
Without.
Without.
Without the 30% blessing.
Yeah, because it was $30 million for the school.
So it's with $24 million with the 80.
No,
The
because it would be
30%
30%. So the school, I believe the price we came up with the school was $30 million.
$30 million.
Yep.
Yeah.
The state pays 30% of that. So the town is 24 million.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, because the people at home watching will want to know bottom line numbers, I'm sure.
And let's keep in mind too, like, let's go back several years. It was probably about half that price, the school we're looking for.
It was.
And it's not going to go down.
Mhm.
And the fact that we potentially right now can get state aid, where for several years now it hasn't been available.
Second thing, you're for the urgent or what you consider really important items, what's your total for everything that's either urgent or that you feel needs to be done?
Your priorities you're referring
It's on the bottom of the chart.
Is it?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
Because we'll have
All
the
right.
town,
We'll
we'll have the
hold
town
that.
and the
Okay.
schools broken out.
Okay. And then the last one I had actually goes back to the last time when we had Dr. Jetty on. I had asked him if he had received multiple bids for the HVAC work because I thought that the price tag was a little bit high, but he didn't answer that. He just said that it needed to be done. So are you getting multiple bids for these?
I don't know if they've gotten multiple bids yet or not, but I know that there's been a couple different individuals involved as far as going through the HVAC and what the needs were. And
Yep.
So that's the point we're at right now is that we have the HL Turner report from a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
And that's where those numbers are coming from. But once the job is bid out or it's going to be done, we feel it's going to come in much lower than that. Or around it, again, you never know what it's going to cost as far as, parts and labor.
Okay, very good. That was my question. I just said it was going out to
It
competitive
would go
bids.
out for multiple bids.
Okay,
It has
perfect.
to for that kind of money.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
The other thing with respect to a bond right now, interest rates are very low.
Yeah, I think we have it listed in there right now is at 2%.
2%.
I mean, it's like free money right now.
Oh, boy.
There's no such thing.
Nothing's free.
Nothing's free. Yeah. Okay,
Any other questions on the school?
no, very good. Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to police. Mr. Cutter.
All right, Chairman Weber asked me to step in this evening and present the slides he would have otherwise presented. As this committee knows and the board knows, Chairman Weber was instrumental as a part of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. I have the honor to present the new police facility, and I know Chief Sergeant is on the line with us tonight as well, so I'll cover just the basics here, and I'll let the chief step in and go into a little bit more detail. The chief presented the idea of a new police facility to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. This was a top competing priority, therefore listed as urgent amongst the Capital Improvement Planning Committee itself. Given really three primary concerns that were highlighted by Chief Sergeant: safety, space, and storage. Very simply put, right? I think the board has the knowledge and certainly the understanding of the safety, space, and storage constraints within their approximate 2,900 square feet to my right, to your left, and the growth of that department over the many years. I know the chief presented to the committee in the public hearing the other night, where we talked about, originally that was built with 7 full-time officers, right? And now we have far more than that working in the same space. This proposal, that what you're seeing here is costs associated with the quote-unquote phase 2 build out, which is essentially the kind of the extension on the fire department, right? And kind of the L shape that was the original design. So really in addition to the fire station. Alternative ideas were discussed amongst the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. I know the chief is also kind of, working through those. One of the ideas tossed around was, if safety, space, and storage is a concern, right? If there's an opportunity to save the taxpayers money, right? Why not utilize this entire building, right? Therefore, we give more office space, which is generally less than setting up a whole new police department, was one of the ideas. But Chief Sergeant, I know you're on, so I'll let you speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Cutter. I appreciate you highlighting those important facts relative to this project. Also, good evening, honorable board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you. As you know, I've submitted one item to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, and that was a new police facility. And I think historically, I've laid out in many of my presentations that the concerns for our current facility started back 2 years after the construction of the town hall and police department where we are now. Since 1997, our full-time police officer staff has increased by 78%. 2 years after the construction of the police department, Chief Iverson noted 4 major deficiencies with the police department. And that was an inadequate male locker room, that was inadequate storage space, that was inadequate garage space, and an off-site records storage location. And for those who are unaware, our old files are stored where the old police department was, in the basement of the old town hall. 2002, the Litchfield Master Plan states, since the facility is rapidly approaching capacity, it is projected by the LPD that in addition to the existing facilities needed in the next 5 years. That's in 2002. And in 2004, Chief Iverson did not submit a capital improvement planning committee request for a new facility. However, he wrote a letter to the committee, and his recommendations were that the police department needs to expand the building on the east side. Again, he highlighted space and storage issues were his justifications. He also noted that the town hall side was in dire need of more workspace. 2004. The town invested money by hiring the Municipal Resources Incorporated in 2008. And there was a organizational study of the police department. And part of their recommendations included were an additional structure on the property for storage, or adding on to the existing structure, or building a new town hall or police department with one element taking over the other side of the building, or to give consideration to a combined public safety complex. If we go back to 2009 for the capital improvement plan, that plan included a new police station, and the justifications for the new police facility were inadequate space in the following important areas: evidence retention, bathroom capacity, office space, record storage, suspect lockup, employee locker room. They were inadequate. Moving forward to 2019, the town invested money when they hired Casel Booth Associates, who conducted a space needs assessment for the police department. It considered the growth of the town. It considered our current facility. It considered our current staffing levels and what the future would look like. And in an ideal world, we would require a 12,600 square foot building. That would be appropriate to meet the needs of the department and the community. Mr. Cutter highlighted earlier, currently work under 2,900 square feet. It's not enough space. I know Mr. Leary, Mr. Lynch both participated in the 2019 building tour of the police department. I would also note that Chairman Weber personally received a tour from former Chief O'Brien and myself. And also, I know Mr. Pinciero and Mr. LaSalle have been into the police department multiple times and are very familiar with the layout and the design.
Incarcerated.
I was going to say why.
It's at that point, and again, I'll reiterate what Mr. Cutter said, three major issues: safety concerns, space constraints, storage restrictions. So what are these safety concerns? Well, current layout right now, it's easy access to the interior of the facility and our civilian staff. If you breach those front two doors, you have immediate access to the administrative assistant, our dispatcher, and our prosecutor. Safety concerns, the layout of our booking. When an officer is booking in a prisoner, they are trapped in one corner. It's a poor design, it's a poor layout. There's improper ventilation for evidence processing. Officers are working with carcinogens, and this is an extreme safety concern. Also, the armory, there is no ventilation for cleaning weapon systems. And I've highlighted that officers clean their weapons on our break room table, where we eat, we process evidence, we photograph evidence. The bail commissioner utilizes that table to bail out prisoners. The evidence room, in an ideal world, and to eliminate a safety concern, would need a HEPA filtration system for molds and toxic substances that are stored in the evidence room. Our sally port is inadequate. It was built too small, and it creates a hazard if you were to try to pull in and to take a prisoner out from the car and keep them inside the sally port area. We're not able to do that. We pull in, we park in front of the sally port garage door. We're exposed outside, and the prisoner is removed from the rear of the cruiser and then walked into the sally port and then into the holding cell. Some space constraints that I'll highlight: our locker rooms. For those of you who participated in the store, you saw $10,000 worth of honor guard equipment hanging in the female shower. Every locker is filled on the male side of the locker room, and in fact, we do have 2 lockers being utilized in the female locker room by male officers. In the interest of full transparency, one is a part-time police officer, and the other one is our SWAT officer who utilizes that to store his SWAT equipment. We do not have a conference or a training room dedicated to ourselves. This is important for operational planning, for briefings, when we work with outside agencies. Our prosecutor office is in a records room. In non-COVID times, the prosecutor would meet with victims of crimes, would meet with defense counsel, and he's doing that from a half records room, half of the office. Storage restrictions, I highlighted about the honor guard uniforms being stored in the female shower. They're now currently in a utility room off of the sally port. There's no police department impound. We do not have the ability to seize and secure large vehicles or multiple vehicles at one time for an investigation. We store tires off-site at the highway department on a second floor storage platform.
As Chief Iverson had highlighted back in the day, we still have police records stored off-site in the mold-infested climate in the bottom of the old town hall. We have no bulk storage. We're currently storing evidence from a federal crime in one of our lockup cells, which limits our ability to properly secure prisoners. Since accepting the position of Chief of Police, we have become in compliance with MRI recommendations, which included decluttering common areas. We completely cleaned out our Sally Port. And as you know, we relocated the honor guard uniforms to make the shower operable. It is still not ideal for their preservation to be where they are, but it is important, especially with COVID-19, to make sure that that female shower was accessible to our female employees. Mr. Leary had discussed looking at multiple bids. I did receive 2 construction cost build-outs for this project. One came in at $8.5 million, and the lower one, which was presented to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, was $6 million. So I hope you recognize these serious concerns, safety concerns, space constraints, storage restrictions. We've worked hard. We're continuing to work with Case of Boots Associates and Ekman Construction on understanding other options. The initial response that I received from the engineer from Ekman Construction and then from the owner of Case of Boots Construction was to take over the town hall, and to build a new town hall would be in excess of $6 million. Both of them are willing and happy to present a presentation to the Board of Selectmen explaining why those costs would be so high. And it also seemed that an option 4 to do a large-scale addition would not work. I'm still waiting for numbers and diagrams to come back. I'd also present to the board that if we were to go to phase 2 of the fire department, which was the plan of the town, that the space for our station could be utilized by the town in multiple different ways. Expanding the town hall, there's many options. So utilizing that space could save the town a lot of money by taking that over. I thank you, everyone, for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll ask the same question I asked the school chief. Is there any state aid or grants available for the construction of this to offset any cost?
Mr. Leary, Captain Scotty and I have been working a lot to locate grants for any amount that could work towards this project. Within the last 2 weeks, we located a federal grant that does allocate monies for public safety complexes. So we are in work with I believe it's the Department of Interior, and we've been working with their grant representative. And we believe that phase 2 could meet the requirements for this grant opportunity. It would not fund the whole project. A lot is based off of the median income of the town. There are several other variables. And even though we would go at a lower rate, there is the opportunity, and we are pursuing and are working towards applying for this grant that could make a significant contribution to the cost of this project. My answer to your question, in short, yes.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Chief?
Ben, Kevin Lynch, you gave a good
Lynch, how are you?
history of what's been going on for years. Town of Litchfield has been, I'm going to say, walking behind the wagon, not pushing it. We wanted to put, well, there was a few of us in town, we felt the town made a mistake on the firehouse, because now we're doubling the cost for soft costs over there for building this police station there. It was not proper, in my opinion. There's another thing that, the town hall, we can expand, but we also got to think of the SAU. The SAU is in the high school. High school is going to need space. Get the office out of the high school. And one of the things here, if you had the police station built at the time when we built the safety complex, the SAU could have moved out into that space there. And this room would have been more operable. This is all stuff that's somebody kicked the ball the wrong way. I also want to bring up a little history about this building. This building took 2 times to get approved to the voters. It was too expensive the first time. So then they turned around, they got rid of the storage, the basement. Okay, and you heard everything tonight. It's all about storage, lockers, and all of that stuff. Okay, and they shot themselves in the foot back then. And this is where we are now. The MRI reports all say the same thing, storage, all the way through. So I just want to say we got to do something. Everybody wants a little bit of the pie, the cake. This is part of the CIP stuff. But there's more than just the school. There's more than just the police. There's a lot of other things involved. So, guys, it's nice. Our town went out wrong, in my opinion, with the fire. Okay, I want to make that clear. I got up at town meeting and spoke against that because we weren't thinking big enough. So hopefully we can find the answer to solve this and be cost effective. Ben, you're doing the best you can with what you got. I think we ought to put your office outside. It's too big. Give it to somebody else. But it's in good shape. Okay? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lynch. I appreciate the insight. And I will share, and I've made it very clear, and to your comment that, there is more than the school and the police department, 100%.
Yep.
This exercise afforded me the opportunity to speak to various committees, to residents, to the people, to explain our concerns over our current facility.
Thank you.
At best, the people have been made aware.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me exercise the, should it be a standalone building? Should it be phase 2? What are these other options? What is the best for the department? What is best for the town? I will not compete with other departments. I will not do that. I was tasked with to present a capital improvement project that was more than $50,000, and this is it. So I appreciate your continued support, and I'm happy to look into some exterior furniture so I can plant my office outside.
Everyone's looking for storage. I can remember probably Mr. Lynch and Mr. LaSalle when Chief Campbell used to keep the records in the closet in his house.
Damn right, that's where they were.
Going way back. Mr. LaSalle.
Yes, Chief Sergeant, with respect to alternatives, if we built a new town hall, would the current building that we're occupying now, could that be made to completely satisfy the needs of the police department?
No, it could not. And the initial diagrams that I've seen, essentially what would happen is the town hall side would be a complete takedown. In order to make it work, it would require that to be completely brought right down. So you would need to construct a town hall first, and then we would need to take down the town hall side, build up, also add in an addition, and then work on the other side. And Ekman Construction has a great presentation for you that will show, and again, not being a building guy, he explained why there would be so much cost attributed with doing that. He told me and Casel Booth Associates, so Ekman Construction and Casel Booth Associates, that if you do that option 3, taking over the town hall and building a new town hall, you are going to far exceed $6 million. And I do plan on, when option 4, a large addition off the back, I do plan on inviting Ekman Construction and Casel Booth Associates to speak with their professional opinions as to why these options are not cost effective. The other thing too with both of those options is we would be displaced. So how would we operate during the construction phase? So those are other concerns. But no, that again, I guess could it work? Yes, but at a greater cost than phase 2, building off of the fire station.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Any other questions on police?
Oh, that was it.
No? Okay. So moving right along, we'll get into fire. I know we have Deputy Chief Nickel with us. The fire did put in 2 items into the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, both replacing 30-year-old plus tankers and really apparatus. The first request is to replace a 1991 tanker truck, which was deemed urgent by the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, for a total cost of $760,827. And the second request was to then replace a 1995 fire engine, which was deemed as desirable, for a total cost of $716,695. Deputy Chief Nickel, I believe you're on with us.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hey.
Would you like just to walk through and present the apparatus requests, please?
Sure, absolutely. So Tanker 3, which is our 1991 Mack KME, it has 2,500 gallons of water and a 1,250 gallon per minute pump on it. So it's not just a tanker; it's already what I guess everybody's calling a multi-use vehicle. It can be used as an engine, a tack engine, or it can be used as a tanker. The only negativity to it is it's only a 2-man cab, so only 2 firefighters can go in it. They can dress in their gear, but they can't put an air pack on while they're in the truck because the truck is just not conducive to that. The truck, again, like I said, is a 1991. It has 52,202 miles on it. And there's also, we also have engine hours, 1,881 engine hours. And the fire pump has its own meter on it, which is 890 pumping hours. A fire truck, usually when it goes to a fire, it's usually the same as if you were driving your car and you had your RPMs up high for 3 or 4 hours straight while it's pumping water. The only difference is the truck's not driving down the road. There is a conversion to take engine hours to figure out a conversion of hours to miles, because basically the truck is still running, it's just not driving anywhere. If we do that conversion, which the fire service uses, the tanker actually has 218,462 driving miles total on it. The fire pump on the existing truck that we have now has been rebuilt twice since we've owned the truck at a cost of between $25,000 to $30,000 each time. And that's a typical thing to a fire truck after so many years. There's just, water going through and the velocity of water moving through, it wears down the pipes. So it's sometimes it can be from the operation of the pump operator, but it's a normal wear and tear thing. A fire truck is recommended to be in first line service for 15 years. And then after that, it should serve as a reserve apparatus or a spare truck until it makes the 20-year mark. After 20 years or greater, regardless of the condition, it's recommended that the truck be retired. So again, this truck is 30 years old. NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, they regulate everything to do with firefighting, whether it's in your home or commercial building or even fire trucks. They have a standard for replacement of fire apparatus. And again, it's right in line with what I'm talking about, the 10 to 15 years in frontline service. One of the things is as a fire truck, just like a police car, gets older, you're putting many firemen on the truck, you're speeding along or whatever you're doing in order to get to an emergency. And, you know, to be using a 30-year-old truck to go to an emergency is like, you know, driving a 1950 car down the highway with your family inside. So there's some things that we use to evaluate a fire truck. And again, one of them is the road miles. The other one's the engine operating hours, which I just went over. Another thing is your preventative maintenance program. We're very fortunate that we have a firefighter paramedic who is a certified diesel mechanic, and he has kept the town's apparatus in very good condition. And then the final thing that they look at is the availability of replacement parts. Usually with any vehicle or anything that you own, after 20 years, it's usually pretty hard to find parts, and a lot of places don't make parts for those vehicles anymore. And then the last thing would be current trading value. Right now, that truck probably, from talking to one vendor, we might be able to get $15,000 to $20,000 for it. A couple of years from now, we may not get anything for it. And I was just speaking with one vendor. So I just want to give a little bit of a history of our apparatus replacement program. I just want people to know that we really have done our due diligence over the years to cut costs and save wear and tear, and really to try and do what we can to make the fleet last. So back in 1991, when we bought our first, or one of our newer trucks that we have now, which is actually the tanker that we're talking about, we did a 5-year lease purchase plan on the truck. So again, if a truck has a span of 20 years of life, the way that it works is we have 4 trucks. So you do a 5-year lease purchase. Then we went into our next truck, which is the 96 engine that we're also talking about. That was the next truck that we bought. Then we went into our 2004 KME, which we're using now. That was another 5-year lease purchase. And now you come back to the 20-year mark, where we never had to come back and ask the taxpayer for extra money, because we had a yearly cost for the lease purchase, and it just kept rolling over, so that, you know, there was, you know, minimal adjustments to that number, you know, as the price of fire trucks went up, that we had to do, but it wasn't a big, huge hit every time that we needed to replace a truck. So that started again back in 1991 under former Chief Lemire. Back then, I believe the truck payment was around $62,000 a year that we were paying. And again, the cycle went on, so again, it wouldn't become a burden to everybody. So the problem that we found out, so after time, is we're in the old fire station, and old fire trucks were very short and they weren't very high. And then all of a sudden, like anything else, we had technology that came along. There was emissions and safety components that were put into fire trucks. The pumps got bigger, the tanks got bigger. And every time that something happened and we replaced the trucks were getting taller and they were getting longer. Unfortunately, because of the old building that we were in, we could not have a truck over 112 inches high. If it was any higher than 112 inches high, when it snowed out, the truck wouldn't fit in the building. And actually, the current tanker that we had now, we had that problem where if there was an inch or two of ice on the front apron, we'd have to scrape it off, or otherwise, a couple times we took out the lights back in the truck in. So as we kept replacing these trucks, they kept getting bigger and bigger and longer. We got to a point where the support vehicles, our forestry trucks and our boats and everything else had to be moved because we couldn't accommodate everything inside the building anymore. And that brought us to the point of where we were for the last few years, where we had 5 vehicles sitting outside. So at one point, what do you do? It's not prudent to keep replacing the fire trucks because you have to, even though they're custom made, the longer you make them, the longer the truck is, the less water you can actually put on them. So we decided and made the decision way back when to stop the replacement program until we could get into a new building. Former Chief Schofield, when he was the chief, actually came up with a great idea. We're into the time where fuel was getting to be very expensive. So a fire truck, for anybody that doesn't know, a fire engine gets about 4 miles to the gallon, which isn't the greatest. So we were looking for any way that we could in order to try and save money on fuel and on wear and tear on the trucks, putting the heavier trucks on the road. And Chief Schofield was able to come up with a deal with the town of Londonderry to buy their rescue truck, which is what we run now, our Rescue One. So prior to that, all of our rescue tools, the Jaws of Life, airbags, everything else we had, all lived on one of the engines, which meant that one of the engines didn't have half of the firefighting tools on it because it had to have rescue equipment. So we solved a lot of things by buying the rescue. We were able to take all that rescue equipment and put it on a rescue truck where it belongs. And we were able to put all the firefighting gear necessary back on the truck. So now these trucks, the fire trucks didn't have to go out as much because they weren't going to all the medical calls. They were just going to fire-related calls. The rescue truck that we purchased got 11 miles to the gallon, and it's a lighter truck, doesn't require a commercial license. So any of the EMTs or paramedics on the department can drive the truck without having a commercial license. So again, win-win situation for the town. So that's what we've been doing for the last many, many years until we were lucky enough to have the support of the taxpayers to fund the new fire station that we're in now. So now, jump ahead, we're in this predicament now where we have 20 and 30-year-old trucks that we need to replace. The other thing that we did during that time period to try and cut down on costs is we tried staggering the use of each truck. We would run the engines for 3 months at a time, first due, first out, and move the trucks around, which helped us in a number of ways at the time. Number one, it made all the drivers familiar with the different trucks because each truck had its own little quirks to it, made them more familiar with the trucks. And it also made it so that one truck wasn't just getting, used constantly all the time and getting a lot of wear and tear put on it. The only drawback to that is now we're faced where the majority of our trucks all have the same similar high mileage on them. So now we're at the point where we're looking for a new fire truck. We're looking to replace the 2-man cab with a 4 to 6 man cab similar to the other engines that we have. We're very fortunate now with where we sit at this new station that we can, within 4 minutes of a call, because this is centrally located, we can actually get 18 guys or ladies to show up to the fire station to take the fire truck. So in the event of a fire, if we have the space, we actually can put more people on the trucks. versus the two-man cab now that obviously can only have 2 people put on it. Somebody has asked before about people driving their own cars to the scene, which we don't do. Especially over the last 20 or 30 years, cancer is very prevalent in the fire service. And just with all the new chemicals and everything that have come out over the last 20 to 30 years, there's just too many chemicals that are coming out of our gear that we won't allow anyone to go to the scene with their personal vehicle, because now they're going to cross-contaminate their vehicle and then have their kids or family members sit in that vehicle, which can lead them to getting sick as well. So we don't allow that. So the new fire trucks that are coming out have evolving technology and new safety standards. They're set up so that you have to make sure that everybody is belted or the truck can't go. There's things for emissions to make the diesel burn cleaner. There's better suspension systems, depending on the horsepower of the motor. If the truck sways too much to one way or the other, it cuts the power to the truck so the truck can't roll over. There's rollover protections in the truck, where a lot of the trucks that we have now, if they roll over, the cabs would more than likely crush in. So it's just a lot of different things. There's speed governors so that the driver can't overdrive the trucks.
Deputy Chief, can I just jump in? I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just looking at the faces here in the room, and I think it's probably pertinent to just ask for questions at this point. I think they all understand the ask.
Sure, no problem. I was actually just about done. I'm very sorry. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
So to the select board, questions.
Are there any questions for Deputy Chief Nichol?
There's questions, but they're not related to the trucks.
Okay. I think the only other thing to add that's helpful to know at this stage is the second truck on here, the 1995 fire engine. You might note in the second bullet here. Yeah. We had talks as a committee to perhaps remove that line item, which I know the chief himself was thinking through that idea, where maybe we can get a multi-purpose type truck. I don't know if I'm using the right language, right? But something that can do both, as opposed to needing 2, get one multi-unit, multi-purpose that can do it all together, right? And that might be representative of cost savings to the town. The chief had requested more time to research that. So both are in the plan because that was the ask, but the idea here is that there might be an opportunity to remove the second truck altogether.
Question? Doug, on your trucks now, what size tanks are on them?
What size tank is on the truck that we're going to be looking at?
No, the ones you have now. You got the big one. You're looking at replacement. Are those 1,000 gallons?
Right. So the tanker that we currently have that we're looking to replace is 2,500 gallons of water.
Okay. We bought that. We had no hydrants 99% of the town. The other question I have is, what are the tank size in the present fire engines you have?
So all the other engines are 1,000 gallons. And what we're looking to do is we would like to cut the size of this truck down, because the tanker we have now is on a tandem axle. And we're looking to go back to a single axle with probably about 1,800 gallons of water, because we do still have areas of town that don't have hydrant service.
I concur with that. Okay. Mutual aid. No, sorry.
So, I mean, in the interest of time, right, because we have a lot more to get through this evening, are there any other
Thank you.
questions for Deputy Chief?
I have a point that, not really a question, but right now, for the next 18 years, the town's on the hook for $260,000 for the fire station bond.
$500,000 a year for hydrants.
$500,000 a year for hydrants, and another $95,000 for a new truck. I mean, that's quite a price tag for the fire department, I would say, for the taxpayers to swallow. And I think the engines are in pretty good shape. We've sat here and listened to the school and the police, and I think both of those are a little bit more important right now. But
We'll
that's
still
just a
discuss
point
it.
I would like to make. Yeah.
I'm concurring with Bob a little bit now because of the hydrant rental cost. Is much more we ever had. And you got to look at what you got. You know, you got two small sections of town that don't have hydrants now. It's not bad to get 2,000 gallons there with your trucks now. That's a good shot. Mutual aid. There's all kinds of reasons for it, but just thinking here, we got to think outside the box because the hydrant rentals are going to be big, and they're going to put more lines down Route 3A now. So
One question, Doug, with all the wildfires out west and the amount of woodlands that we have here in town, and the dryness of the situation right now, could you just in a couple of minutes, what's your capability with respect to wildfires?
Well, so right now our typical brush response that we have is engine 2, which is the other truck that we were talking about replacing. We would send an engine, 2 forestry trucks, the small one that has 300 gallons on it, the large forestry that has 1,000 gallons on it, and then also the tanker truck that we're talking about tonight. So that is our brush capability. The 2 forestry trucks would go off-road, and they would be augmented for water either by the tanker or by the engine from, if there happens to be a nearby fire hydrant to shuttle water into the woods. The big forestry truck would have to come in and out of the woods to shuttle water in. And obviously, we rely a lot on mutual aid as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thanks, Deputy Chief.
You're welcome.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit. I know you have other things on your agenda tonight as well. Not for nothing, though. I know we have Mr. Brown with us. And the Highway Department also presented to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. Essentially, what we're going to talk about first is the roads, and then get into the next slide here, which is more of the equipment and then other. And so the roads, as this board knows, a longstanding practice within the town of Litchfield has been a $200,000 warrant article that's gone to the voters, and to my recollection has always been passed by the town, with the exception of the last 2 years in which it was removed from the actual ask to the town because of the costs associated with the fire station, right? To give it back a little bit and just to reduce some of that burden on the taxpayer. The idea, though, is to maintain our current roads and infrastructure. The need is going to be about $400,000 a year. There's $200,000 or so in your operating budget that we review every year. That is offset 100% through revenue through the highway block grant. So although we're budgeting it in town and you see it in your operating budget, there's an offsetting revenue that goes against it. So the actual burden to the town over the past couple of years has been zero. And the idea is to restore the $400,000 to maintain the master road improvement plan. So you have 2 articles here, one for the continued operating budget, one for the idea behind starting up the warrant article again for $200,000. Moving into the road plan, the board, I'm sure that you've seen this, but just to quickly cover it, there's a 2021 road plan all the way through to 2026. And what you'll see here is very consistently an approximate $400,000 a year to cover each one of these roads. And if you'll notice, the town administrator has done a really great job, along with other planning committees, to really keep these projects in the same general area of town, right? So the same communities will have the same road improvements during the same period. That cuts down on equipment costs because all the equipment's already there at the same location, and it's a good plan for the town. So that's the ask for roads. Any questions? Okay, moving over to equipment. There are several key pieces of equipment that are aged and coming to end of useful life. There's the backhoe, which is a key interdepartmental piece of equipment used not only by our highway department, but also the recycling. Thank you, recycling center. There's a request for a new plow truck within this plan, given the growth in town over the last few years and roads anticipated to come online. Such as the new community over off of Page. There's a new community off of Nessenkeg, as well as the new community being developed right now. You're looking at me like you have a question.
Nesting keg?
Yes.
Is it-
Hamel.
Oh, yeah, right on the corner there.
It's done.
It's done, but we've never increased the
Okay.
plow trucks
Okay.
to, right? So we're using current infrastructure, current equipment to maintain those roads, right? And
I
the
understand
idea,
what you're saying. No,
Yep,
that's what I'm
so
saying.
there's-
New
there's a-
development going, that's already been done.
correct. So there's a new plow truck in there for the growth of the town. And in addition to that, there's also replacement equipment here, as you see listed, a 2000 plow truck, as well as several Ford vehicles, et cetera. Mr. Brown, anything to add?
No, I think you covered it great. I know there was some emails going around about the backhoe, and granted, the backhoe does have life left in it. But like most towns in the CIP project, you give a serviceable date for a piece of equipment, and then you try and trade it when it still has a good value, and before it gets into that maintenance portion of its life. Where we're at now, we just put $5,200 into the backhoe. The front of it's going to need probably another $5,000 with bushings and such. So that's the idea behind that. Can we keep running that? Absolutely. Is our equipment maintenance cost going to go up? Absolutely. So that's why we're asking for that now. Excuse me. And the plow trucks, I mean, we're in the same boat as the fire department. Our trucks are old. We have some new ones. Jack got a 2018. I got a 2020. But we need to continue to update those. We have 2003s. We have 1999s. We have the 2000, and they need to be updated with newer equipment.
We talked a lot about the asks amongst the committee here, right? Because it is at face value a lot, right? That the highway department is asking for. And, I think Mr. Brown really did a nice job of summarizing it, right? Where we really used all the equipment that we have in its best useful life, right? Right now, this equipment has an end of life value, a trade-in value, right? That's not covered in any of the numbers that you see here, right? So these numbers, these potential costs are for new equipment without the offsetting trade-in values. So the idea behind it is if we're able to get 15,000 a truck or 40,000 for the backhoe, which is, an estimate, that offsets a lot of the costs here that you're seeing on the screen and on this page currently.
Anybody have any questions?
Moving into other, there were two additional asks from the highway department. One is the salt shed for a price tag of about $139,048. And the idea behind the salt shed was it's hard to procure or more difficult to procure salt in the winter months. Our salt shed storage capacity gets the town through about 1 to 1.5 storms, and then we're fighting to get more deliveries for future storm coverage. Having a larger storage shed, salt storage shed, will obviously increase the capacity, which decreases the need for us to procure salt in the winter months when it's much more difficult and we're competing against other towns. Additionally, what you see here is the parking lot repair. So assuming a salt shed would be constructed, the highway parking lot, fixing it and resurfacing it is also planned for that same year.
Excellent. Yeah. A new salt shed would also give us another garage bay where the salt is now. Right now, we park both yellow piece of equipment in one bay. We have a broken down machine that we put in the garage. Now we have to park those outside. That would open up that bay for another, say, a repair facility.
As you're thinking about these costs, again, at face value, it seems like a lot. You're seeing a lot of numbers tonight. There is a summary page at the end of this presentation, which we'll cover, where you'll see, and if I think back to our vision statement, as the chair has mentioned, we really tried to stabilize costs so you don't see these ups and down, peaks and valleys of tax spikes over the years. So that's coming. On recreation, I'll just kind of quickly go through the remainder of the items here for everyone's sake, I think. Recreation, Dara parking lot, the Rec Commission did present to our committee. There's a need to surface and fix the drainage at Dara Pond. I know Chairman Weber had mentioned when he presented this at the public hearing last week that if you've been in there in the winter, it's a skating rink, right? And if you've been there in the summer, it's mud, right? And the idea behind it is, there's heavy usage of the town hall facility, both for pickleball leagues and other leagues in town. it really is quite a hazard. And to fix the drainage along with paving that complete area and striping for parking is about $175,000. Conservation also presented to the committee. I don't believe Ms. McKibben's with us. Is that correct?
I believe she is. No, I don't think there's anyone from conservation.
Okay. So conservation requested $2 million for land acquisition. This is in addition to the approximate $700,000 that they have in their own account currently for this very purpose. There's key parcels of land that the Conservation Commission has their eyes on to purchase for preservation of our wildlife, as well as expansion of trail systems in town. If I reflect back to the planning board and capital improvement survey that recently went out, there was actually a lot, I must say, surprisingly, there was a lot of support for conservation, and rightfully so. You know, I think there's a lot of people that obviously like the agricultural aspects of our town. And if there's anything that we can do to prevent, you know, additional new home growth, it's kind of the idea, and preservation of what we have, there was a lot of support for that in town.
I also think too, COVID-19 may have had a part to do in it too, because I noticed a lot of use of Morse Falls this year than I've ever seen. So it's quite remarkable.
So the idea behind the funding here at $666,000 that you see over a 3-year period, it's specifically on these years to meet the $2 million ask requests, and it's because of the peaks and valleys that I was talking about. This is what level set it to the best of our ability. Library also presented to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. They requested actually a new facility to the tune of approximately $3 million. This is based upon not any research or studies that actual costs or proposals that they have. It's based upon what other towns in New Hampshire have developed libraries for. I know the director at the library, Vicky, she presented at the public hearing very eloquently on the needs and the requests and the why, and you know, same conversation that we had with Griffin, where there's high water table issues. There's moisture issues in that facility. There's inadequate spacing issues, etc. A lot of the public hearing or public feedback on the survey was to leave the library as is. It's beautiful the way it is, etc. I don't think there's any dismissing that. I think, you know, all of us agree with that. It really becomes a spacing issue, and you know what's going to be the best served for future years. This was labeled by the committee as an R for research. You'll note that this is the only item on the capital improvement that was labeled as an R. And the reason being is there was a lot of outstanding questions. There's several outstanding questions that the capital improvement planning committee had that we felt were not adequately addressed. Right, wrong, or indifferent, right? We just didn't know, right? So what's the intention of the Aaron Cutler Library itself? What was the intention of Mr. Cutler? Right? Is that building, you know, forevermore, does it have to be a library? Can it be repurposed to something else? Right? We didn't know the answers to some of those questions, and we really felt it was prudent to understand that before making any commitments. There was also talk of, you know, can we use some of the other library facilities like at our schools for this? You know, then there's obviously safety concerns with adults coming in with students, you know, all that type of thing has to be thought through. But is there a way to essentially meet the need for less cost? One of the other items that the committee did talk about in full disclosure was, hey, you know, is there an opportunity here to no longer use our library, right? To repurpose that building to something else if that's what the town desires, and to use surrounding towns like Londonderry or Hudson, et cetera. And, you know, for $50, you know, right today, we can go into Hudson and buy a pass for a year to use their facilities. Right. So if the town assumed that for, you know, the 8,000 people or so that live in town, it would actually result in a significant savings over the current costs of that facility today. Something to think about.
And the other questions in the era of the internet, the traditional use of libraries to check out books and so forth, it would seem to me, and the demand has gone down. I know that I spent time over at Campbell, and there are books in there that there's probably a lot of books that have never been checked out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Vicky would agree with you, right? Especially in current times with sanitary concerns and, you know, they're having to sanitize every book that comes in and out of that facility. But I mean, even the spacing concerns with their 2 computers that they have, this was talked about, where there's no private space for a community member to come in and to apply for a job or to work on a resume. You know what I mean? So that's also a concern and that's a support service that the library provides today. So it's more than just books, right? In our thinking.
I think we have to completely revision how we use libraries.
Well, schools call them learning commons now, right? They're not called libraries.
But we still see a sea of books.
Yes.
That are obsolete in many cases. And, I understand the need, and you can't poo-poo how the library is being used for like story hours and stuff like that. And the building, there's a sense of community in having those. And I get that, but we need to re-envision how we use the library.
I know Vicky sent out a note. Hopefully the board had a chance to see that. I believe it was circulated to the board. Yeah. So if you haven't looked at that, I would encourage you to take a look at that. It's essentially all the points that were made at the public hearing as well. And one of the points on the planning board survey again was the need for a community center or town common, right? That was very high feedback. If you haven't seen that, where there's a lot of desire to have one central area in town that we can call a town common. And the library, thinking about in spirit of what it offers, is really kind of at the heart of that, right? Bringing community together, doing story times, acting as a way to come in and access and be, just a friendly environment. And so they wanted to be a part of that, right? And not be kind of left alone on 3A anymore, which was the former center of town, and to be shifted up to where the center of town is now, right? And to be part of that community type of setup.
Plan was to build the library over here at one time.
And I think that's what
If you looked at the plan for this whole facility, the police department was included, the library was included. This was to be the center of town.
And I think that's still the desire.
Well, it's good to hear that people feel that way.
Yeah.
We definitely got a lot of feedback about having.
That
a
was
town
the
center.
intent when the park out here was built, was to give a little central location for the town, the center.
Put a little dunks here and I think everyone will be a fan.
Isn't there a layout when we built this? Didn't we have? We had a layout for it where the buildings would be located, but I don't know.
I think that really should be dusted off and considered, certainly as the select board, and as you're, preparing your warrant articles every year, right? And thinking about kind of the long-term plans, the planning board is to dust that off because there's a lot of desire for that.
Yes, but going back to Rich's point, as far as how to utilize a library today, and if you look at the schools to change them into learning commons, they are more meeting places. They open them up, the
Adjustable
bookshelves are on
shelves.
wheels, you can move them, furniture can be moved and changed all the time. And really, that's what they're for. They're actually meeting spaces. So you have a building that you could probably utilize that way now. But you just have to reconfigure what's inside that building in order to do so. Because that's what we've done at the schools, because that's the trend that libraries are going to. They're not what they used to be. And you're right. I mean, when we started doing this at Campbell, one of the things I pointed out is the Encyclopedia Britannica. I said, really? When do you think the last time a student picked out an encyclopedia? They did it, but it's right here.
Yeah, Siri.
Yeah, Siri. Google it.
Well,
And that's it.
a school that doesn't even have textbooks doesn't need a library.
So just one more thing quickly. The planning board did do a capital facilities survey. It was really a planning board function, not necessarily a capital improvement function, but we actually had it complement the capital improvement plan. I just wanted to run through some of the findings of the survey, and I thought this was kind of interesting, as to the ranking of proposed improvements in order of preference. 80% favored preference as priority Highway Department multi-year paving plan. 78% the new pre-5K elementary school. 76% energy efficiency improvements at the middle and high schools. 76% proposed conservation fund for land acquisition. 76% new fire department pumper truck and fire engine. 72% new police department, and 66% new library.
Think about that. And it's a great point. And if Jay was here, one of the comments that he made at our public hearing he'd make tonight is we had over 10% of the town respond, which according to surveys is astronomical. That's a really good sample, right? So the people have spoken, right? And to have, 65 and above percent vote for things or recommend things like the new school, the energy efficiency that addresses in the school, the fire, the police. I think as a board, you need to really think about that as you put forth your warrants. So
Another point on the library is I believe that the library has to be used for a library because it was if I'm not mistaken, using the wrong word, a dowry from Aaron Cutler to construct and utilize a free public library within town. It was also built by a lot of people in town. My grandfather was the general. I believe it can only be used as a library. I'm not positive on that, but because she's on the trust.
Which one? Then there's another discussion to that, right? That can be had. Well, all right, if it's going to be a library, is there still an opportunity to have a newer library facility in the center of town and use that for another library-like service, right? I don't know what that looks like, but
There's all kinds of legalese attached to that library. I think there's a certain amount of money that's for Lithuanian books that are part of the original grant. I'm not sure it was Lithuanian, but it was one of the Baltic countries, I think. But there's some real,
I think
you can get in the weeds there.
if we just look at library, and this is putting my budget committee hat on, right? The library itself, from a budget perspective, I can think back just a handful of years where that budget was $200,000, right? Now we're in the mid threes, right? If I add in the school library costs in each one of the libraries at each of the schools, as a town, we pay over $1.5 million just for libraries in our budget. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. I don't know what they bring in either in fees and whatnot at the library.
Can't be much.
No,
I don't know. It's the service. Yeah.
So just moving forward, right, this is, I know it's an eye chart. Hopefully you have this in your inbox as well so you can see it. This is the one-page summary of all of the asks coming together. So the town plus the school is right around, anywhere between 2.7 and $3.7 million in that range. So we'll call it 2 to 3 plus in terms of fluctuation and asks. This is combined. It's everything all together. And again, I would just remind everyone who's seeing this for the first time, this does not represent actual warrant articles or plans or actions that the board is taking. This is simply just a planning document. Anything to add?
So I think, presented a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of work that went into this. I think there was a lot of thought that went into this. It is a planning document. We hope that this can be used. We hope that the town, if you decide tonight to accept it as a board, I think it's going to be a great benefit to the town. I think going forward, if we continue the process, it's going to be, you're going to be able to have something to rely on, to go back on. And when you're doing your budgets, when you're preparing, your plans, these are the things that you're going to take into consideration. You're going to go to that document, that as that actual functioning document, and say, well, we did this one year. We're looking at this, and this is going to be, what we're going to focus on. I mean, obviously, GMS has been the priority. The police station on the town side sort of been, raised by the capital as a priority, as urgent. The other things, highway, recreation, conservation, they're all important too. And it's just important to realize that, it's important to understand that the capital improvement plan is a planning document, and you have to keep that in mind. But also too, when you're looking at it from the tax impact standpoint, we have the tax cap. I know we discussed a lot of this at the last hearing. you know, how does that play into it? Okay, there's a lot of variables there too. But I think to focus on this, I think it's important for you to realize that this is a planning document and it can be used, I think, very strongly as a tool to help you as you progress with the budgets and so forth in the process. So tonight we basically presented to you. Is there any other questions that you folks have? We would, recommend that, at this time to accept the capital improvement plan as we presented it this evening.
The only thing I would ask is tax impact. I believe I had asked that before. I see something for the school on the bottom line of that chart, but I don't see anything.
It's really-
Is that just for GMS or is that?
No, there's estimated tax impact. So for the first year, it's very small. I apologize. It's $2.81 for 2021, $2.71 for 2022. This is total.
1,000 is what you're saying.
Yes, per
Oh, that's
thousand.
total for everything?
That's total for everything, and that's only assuming that everything that you see there is funded.
Okay.
And we got
That's the only
restrictions.
question I had.
And we got restrictions because of the tax cap.
Yeah, the tax cap would be.
Right.
Yep.
Um,
I just like to add something to this. I like to congratulate the team. And the reason why I say, I like what you said, every 3 months you get together and review it, the same group. I've seen these CIP committees get gone. You never hear or see anybody again. Keep them active. That's half the battle. And it works better all the way around. It keeps us informed as the board because things change all the time. The administrator helps out a little. We give Troy a pat in the back.
Troy's tired
He did a lot of
and
walking.
very sore.
And if I may just add one final comment, right? Litchfield is a fantastic town. We all live here for a reason. We all have a love for our community. This is a town all about community. Why you're seeing the plan the way it is today is because we've all done the best we could with what we had, right? This town has a great capability of fixing things and expanding things, right? But that's not necessarily the best case for what the future holds. Mr. Lynch mentioned it this morning or this afternoon, right? When we were talking about the town hall construction and how, geez, it was originally presented with a basement, right? But that was cut out of the budget. Just think about what that small cost back then would have solved for today, right?
Would have been a big difference here.
It would have made a huge difference here. So when we look at this plan, right, in my mind, it's fixing a lot of the things and addressing a lot of the issues that we've just kicked down the road. And we've kicked down the road for so long.
Can't argue that.
Right. And yes, it's expensive and it's very expensive. But think about what the costs are going to be in 5 or 10 years from now.
Well, if you still got your
That's
kids
all.
want to stay here, and some of the other people want to come here, we just burden the cost on them in the future. We did it now with just the impact we had the hydrants. Holy Moses. No more than
That's a whole nother discussion.
Nothing.
That's a whole
live one.
And to Mr. Lynch's point, as far as us meeting quarterly, I mean, that was discussed, not quarterly, but make sure that we did meet on a regular basis at the very beginning, because this is a working document and things can change. In 2 years from now, what's a priority, that we're looking at in the year 2024 might have to be shifted to 2022 for whatever reasons. And
Yeah, what happens when, the Brickyard Bridge washes out again? You need to replace a whole road. You know what I mean? Things happen. So, but you know what I mean? Things happen.
Did you get those beavers yet?
I would say that you guys would be commended for the work you've done. This is absolutely just a great document. As far as a board goes, I don't think that we should hold ourselves in such high esteem as to not accept it. I'm of the mindset that no matter what, it's still got to go to the voters, and I think anything should go to the voters. So
It's a formality more
Yeah.
than anything.
So
I
I
make a
would-
motion
I
that
would
we
say-
accept the capital improvement program.
I'll second.
we have a motion by Mr. Pinciaro and a second by Mr. LaSalle's. Any further discussion? I'll just say thank you again for all your hard work.
Thank you.
All those in favor of accepting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I didn't think there would be.
I think
Motion
that
carries
represents.
400.
Thank you very
I
much.
have a quick library story.
Here we go.
First moved to town. being a student of history, I was doing some research and I went down to the library and found that they had a copy of Mein Kampf.
Oh, really?
So I decided to take it out. I was going to read it, and it was published. I'm not sure when it came to our town, but it was in the late 20s, early 30s. And this was in 1980, I think. There had been one other person who had taken it out, Roland Bergeron. That was
World War II hero.
and he was.
He was. Yeah.
And a logistics person. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
That's funny though.
I wonder if it's still there.
I have no idea.
He's allowed to take it.
I have no idea.
Roland
But,
probably gonna take it back.
There is from 1966, I took out a book. It's still there. It's still there.
My great aunt and before her, my grandmother were the librarians there for almost, I want to say 65 or 70 years. And they were firm believers that you put everything out and the people will read what they want to read. But they believed in history, which is why that book was there. And you could realize, just what a sick and twisted individual this guy was. But they wanted people to be knowledgeable, and that's what they did. They put everything out there for the public to have.
I'm one that I could get lost down there. I just.
Not that big a building, Rich.
Yeah.
It's, but I also get lost in my computer, so I'm easily distracted.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, do we have any more business for them? I don't think so, huh? You guys have done great.
Mind if I hang tight for the rest?
Oh, you absolutely can.
I wasn't supposed to be here
It's
the
a
other
draft
day.
warrant article, so I don't want to.
Okay, we gotta get out of this.
Next one is going to be use of money.
Thank you, Michael.
So,
Absolutely.
all right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good night.
So we are back into.
Chief Sergeant with the
Where are we
admin
at?
car.
Oh, cars.
He's
that?
using his
Cars, right?
salary
Police car.
line to take care of this.
All right. So our next item is Administrative Vehicle Purchase Memorandum from Chief Sergeant. Chief, are you still there?
Mr. Leary, I am.
Okay.
Sorry to wake you.
I'm listening with great attention.
Okay.
You're a better man than I.
All right.
So I don't know if you'd like me just to move forward, or if Town Administrator Brown needs to introduce anything, just please let me know your format, and I can roll with whatever direction you'd like me to go.
I think, Chief, you can, with the time we're at right now, why don't you go ahead, introduce it, and explain your letter. They've had a copy of it, so.
10 words or less.
Give us the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
I will do that very, very quickly, and so I will assume that every member of the board has received my memorandum that I prepared on September 23rd to the town
Did
administrator.
you see it, Andrew?
And I will give you the very quick Reader's Digest version. So after presenting the 2021 Police Department budget last Monday, I recognize the serious concerns that the Board of Selectmen had over next year's revenues. I also recognize the serious concern of the overage on the tax cap that the town was. And I wanted to go through my budget proposal again and see how I could help. And in doing that, I started to analyze our current budget this year. And I realized that there's a great opportunity if this board would authorize expenditures this fiscal year and to repurpose some encumbered funds that I could help you significantly reduce your tax cap overage So very quickly, the police department has encumbered $15,000 for speed and traffic enforcement equipment. I would ask you to repurpose those funds towards the purchase of a new administrative vehicle in this year, fiscal year 2020. I would highlight that we have $3,478 in our cruiser purchase line item this year. I'm currently down 3 officers. I have an officer who's out on medical leave. His wages are currently being covered by the town's workers' compensation insurance plan. Over the next 8 weeks, we would save $12,464 in salary. I have an officer who's currently on military leave. I've just received notice he will be on that leave until at least next September 2021.
Jesus.
That would be a savings of $21,120 in salary for the remainder of the year. We have a vacancy in the police department. I don't anticipate that position to be filled until the beginning of November. So for a savings in salary, it's $9,856. If this board were to repurpose the $15,000 towards the purchase of an administrative vehicle, those other savings in salary and the additional that I have remaining in the cruiser purchase line item, that gives us $61,918 this year. My memorandum asks the Board of Selectmen to authorize me to purchase 2 Chevy Traverse to replace our 2014 and 2015 Ford Explorer administrative vehicles. If the board authorizes me to do this, I can reduce the line item for next year's budget proposal under the cruiser purchase line item by $62,836. That's almost 50% of your overage. McMullen Chevrolet has a Chevy Traverse in stock right now. It is a little higher than the state bid. It has a couple extras, remote starter, and a couple other small things. So the cost of the vehicle would be approximately $29,000. But the trade-in value on the 2014 Ford Explorer is $4,500. So we cover that and we still have some savings. I would anticipate that the 2015 Ford Explorer would generate more of a trade-in value, probably $5,000 to $5,500. They're willing to hold that vehicle for us. And they also advised me that they're going to receive 2 more from the Chevy plant. So if you authorize this, again, you're meeting the needs of the department while significantly reducing the tax cap overage. So number 1, I would ask you to repurpose the $15,000 towards the purpose of an admin vehicle. And I would ask for your blessing to purchase 2 2020 Chevy Traverse this fiscal year. Thank you.
I have one question, Chief. Is that including
Yes,
all
sir.
the outfitting of those vehicles? Those 2 vehicles?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, thank you.
That was my question. Thanks, Jack.
We're very fortunate to have the chairman of the budget committee here. Do you see any budget issues with any of this that might arise?
Since I'm allowed to speak, thank you for,
See,
no, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity to reduce the tax cap. And Chief, I thank you for your willingness to take a look at your budget and do that again. You know, I guess the questions that I have, if I may, are, you know, what's the intention of the old Ford 500 that's still out in your parking lot, right? Why isn't that one going to be kind of in scope for a transition? In addition to that, a second question is, you know, if you zero out your equipment, your car purchase line for next year, yes, it helps next year, but it's not going to help in 2022, right? Because now you're going to get back to the 1-1-1, I think is the plan, unless you're going to do a 1-2-1 or some other modification to that, right? So yes, it helps temporarily, but it kicks it down the road and it creates another problem in 2022 with tax cap.
Yeah, Mr. Cutter, I do recognize that. And so first, for the Ford 500, there is the opportunity to if the board authorized me to purchase the second one, the trade-in value on that is next to nothing, but to transfer the 2015 Ford Explorer to the detective vehicle, we currently have a vacancy in that position, so it's not a priority because we are short-staffed. So that vehicle is not being utilized. So I would give great weight to consider, can I cover it without trading in the 2015 and just getting and replacing the Ford 500? And in regard to next year's budget, I mean, I'm happy to introduce, to purchase one this year and then leave a line item at one, so it's not such an impact. But I really felt that all the departments had did such a great job with their budgets coming forward, really dissecting their budgets, combing through and identifying areas where they could save. I understand, yes, it's a hit next year, but also we wouldn't have the $150,000 for the radio communication system. So I think we're in a better place. So yes, you would see a $48,000 increase for that line, but I'll help the town this year, and hopefully maybe next year someone else could find a way to, to help save. And again, we're not hit with that initial $150,000 whack. My intention, and I'm not able to 100% commit to this, in terms of saying that we would never have to purchase two cruisers. It was an effective program to buy one, to buy two. We're working with the fleet manager now, Sergeant Dennis Tessier, just to figure out what does this look like. Would there be a time that we would need to purchase two vehicles? So my recommendation to address the tax cap needs would be for this year, yes, allow me to purchase these two vehicles. And yes, next year, my budget is definitely going to increase by the cost of one frontline cruiser.
Okay, that's all you can have going forward. Troy, do you have anything to add to this? I mean,
No, the chief, he came to me and discussed this concept, and we discussed it lengthy, consulted with our finance director, and to make sure we could repurpose those funds. And we're very confident that this is a good plan to take.
Okay.
It's going to help with the tax cap. We understand there's still some financial impacts for the 2022 budget, but every year you have different parts that are moving, and you can't control those. Hopefully we have some better revenues in 2022 forecasted. So I do think this is a good way to proceed.
okay. So we should make a motion to repurpose the 15,000? Or
Yeah, I'd keep the motion as simple as to repurpose the encumbered $15,000 towards the purchase of a new admin vehicle, and to authorize the chief to purchase two admin vehicles within his operating budget.
Okay.
So moved.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
No. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
All right. Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 400.
Good job, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, board members. And I hope this helps as you move forward with a tough budget year. Again, I can't thank you enough for your support of the department. Thank you, Mr. Cutter, for the thoughtful insight. And thank you, Troy and Karen, for working with me and helping me bring this forward to the board. So I really appreciate your support, and I really think this is an excellent way to proceed. Thank you again.
Very good. Thank you. Have a great night. All right.
I'll still be on.
All right. Next we have permit fees.
I think he's out there.
Yeah, I'll just do a quick introduction. So Inspector Dion, as you know, has been working with us for just over a year now. And he, when he first started working for the town, one of the things he did was obviously start to learn about our permitting fee system, applications that we process. He worked with researching different softwares that we could use. He selected one. We implemented a software online permitting system, had to set up the fee structure within that permitting software. So he's always, 6 months ago, he approached me and was, very concerned that he felt that our fee system wasn't really in keeping with the surrounding communities. And he felt that a lot of the fees that we were charging were drastically under the market rate. And in some cases, we were performing inspections and reviewing and issuing permits with no charges. So he brought this to my attention. We would have brought this to you sooner, but COVID hit and we kind of felt it was not a good time to, having a discussion about increasing fees. There was a lot of uncertainty at that time. But recently knowing that we have some tax cap, issues, and looking at ways that we can reduce our costs, but also maybe try to look at ways that we can increase revenues, this subject matter came up again. And Mr. Dion, as you see, has provided you, there's some paperwork that you have in front of you. He's gone through the entire fee schedule and has presented as a concept. We just want to introduce this evening and see if we have your support, because there's a legal process that's involved in updating your fee schedule. There's public here, there's a legal notice that you have to put in a paper. It's going to be very costly because you need to. Well, the union leader still does run a paper,
Yes,
so
they do daily.
But we need to actually, in that legal notice, you actually need to list all the fees that you're changing. So, so I don't want to proceed with that next step if the board's not interested. They really need to be on board with this 100% before you take that next step. So, with that being said, Inspector Dion, I'll allow you to go ahead and explain your fees and just the current setup of how we process permits now.
Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, members of the board. So Troy's right, early on in the game when I was brought on, the MRI reports led us to believe that our fees were kind of behind the times. And they were last adopted back in 2011. So they've had a 10-year run. I find, one of the biggest things I found is that we were doing a lot of permit work for free. And I actually did some counting and we're averaging about 95 free permits a year. Which, I may understand they're part of a larger permit, the building permit. But that could be a small permit as well. It could be a $35 building permit that ends up getting them 2 free permits. So MRI, originally suggested that we get a software program, and the software program, comes with an expense to the town that, free permits just aren't free to us anymore. We need to cover our costs. A big part of my proposal is trying to get the building department closer to being, self-funded. I'm not sure that this permit increase that I've proposed will get us quite there. My best estimate, with current amount of permits that are being issued, I think it's going to generate an additional 25,000, maybe as high as 30,000, depending on the amount of building permits issued in a year. So, I brought the base permit fee up to $75. That would be a minimum permit fee, a non-refundable permit fee. And then from there, we based all the other permit increases kind of on the same level as our old one. We just brought them up in that same increment. Hoping, to generate a little more money for the building department to hopefully cover some of our expenses. Like I said, the permit software is a yearly expense to the town. I do believe it was a wise investment. It helps me tremendously in what I do and keeping track of things for the town. You know, we have salary expenses and everything else that we try to, I would like to try to cover through the use of the fees and make it more so that the people using the building department are covering the expenses of the building department, not the town as a whole. And that's how I based it. And I tried to stay with fair numbers for, you know, the community and everybody using the system. And it was based on, you know, some other surrounding towns. Litchfield was the lowest amongst the group that we surveyed. In some cases, not by a whole lot, but in some cases by thousands of dollars. So that's kind of why we presented it to you tonight, to look over and hopefully approve, to increase the fees and, you know, get us more competitive with the area towns.
Very good. Thank you very much for all your work. A lot went into this. I think probably the thing to do is to go over it and maybe address it at the next meeting, Troy?
Yeah, we wanted to introduce it this evening. The thought process is if once you review this, we get your input, answer any questions you have, and if there's support, we'll take the next step and go forward and start advertising. And again, we would want to have these fees put in place by January 1st. We think that would be a good implementation date. It allows us, the activity in the building department is slower in January and February, so it allows Peter to get the word out to all the contractors so that they're aware of this come March and April. The activity picks up again.
Okay.
I have one question. The permit process computer system they have, is there an annual fee that we have to pay for that? And that's why that cost is there?
There is, Peter, you remember what the annual licensing fee is?
For the permit software, it's, this year it was just under 5,000. Next year, I believe it's proposed at 5,120.
So that's just for the software we pay. each
Software
year.
license.
And it's only good for 1 year?
Is it?
It's 1 year, yeah. You renew it every year.
Management program?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I don't know if you guys want to take the time, but when we originally looked into the software programs, that program was the least by a large number. There was some permit software management programs that were as much as $25,000 a year to the town. So we spent a lot of time looking for that particular software. And this one actually gave us a lot of bang for our money. It worked out well, especially with the COVID.
Okay.
Very good.
Any questions?
Okay. Yeah, we'll address them at the
I
next
have some
meeting.
questions on
Okay.
this already. Yep.
Okay. Very good. So we'll do that. We'll
We should have a
continue
full
this
board for
discussion.
this.
at the next meeting, yeah? Huh?
That's what I meant. You should have a full board for this.
Yep, yeah, we'll have everybody on board. Mr. Weber should be here. Okay, very good. Thanks again, Peter. Thanks for waiting all night.
It was a long one, but I appreciate you guys' time. Have a good evening.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right, good night.
Good night. All right, next is the snow contracts. Mr. Brown again.
Ladies and gentlemen.
How we doing?
I'll do this quick. Right now, we have 7 trucks that the town now owns. 6 are up and ready to go. Our brand new truck, the equipment for that, the plows and the sand will be in the second week of October. So by the second week of October, we'll have 7 trucks. I have drivers for all of them except for one of the pickup trucks, which we're working on right now. We also have the backhoe and the loader. The loader also has a plow, which we put out. I usually drive that myself. As of right now, we have 7 subcontractors. Well, seven subcontract trucks, I should say. So we'll have a total of 14 trucks. I'm still waiting to hear on one driver, one owner operator. who showed interest, and he's just waiting to see how his truck runs, so we might get that up to Pete. That'll be 9 Sanders total in town. I'm actually working with the 2 companies that bid on the parking lot contract and the bike path contract right now. Trying to get their quotes down back to something more reasonable. And they're both very open to, bringing it probably back down to the same prices of last year. Our salt bin right now is full. With the end of the beginning of this year, the winter kind of lightened up. So our salt funds are kind of high right now. So our contractor money is high.
Don't say that in front of the budget committee.
Well, you can take it all you want. When I don't have enough, I'll be coming back. The 3-year average, we like that. We already took 10 last year. But we lucked out. We had a mild beginning of the year, and I'm not going to say that the end of this year is going to be mild, but you just don't know. So we're in good shape with that. Working with Troy with salt reduction for the stormwater management. We're using more sand.
Mm-hmm.
I used a lot more sand last year. Worked out pretty well. And that's about it. We look good. We look good right now.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm not asking this question tonight. It's all about Troy.
Okay.
That stormwater one, that bothers me a little bit.
That bothers us all. It's
Okay.
difficult,
I know
especially.
you have no control. Damn, I hate catch basins.
Very good. Well, that's great news, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's hope it stays.
Yes, absolutely. Keep the drought going.
Yeah, very good. No, we need rain. We just don't need a lot of snow.
Keep the drought going.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brown before we let him go for his evening? Very good. Thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next online is the budget review.
So I just updated our tax cap calculation by putting $1 in the police cruiser line. And that brings the tax cap estimated overage to $73,000.
We're over still by 73.
Well, yeah, but and like I said, if there's interest in the board of looking at the building permit fees, I've had discussions where we'd be pretty comfortable increasing on the revenue side for the first year at about $20,000 to $25,000 in new revenues. So that would bring it down, say just around 50,000, a little less. Now, this is what happens every year at this time. We're putting together a budget and we don't have our health insurance and we don't have our workers' comp and property liability insurance policies. So a lot of the work that, we start trying to accomplish, a lot of it can get
Gone.
All that accomplishments washed out as soon as those policies come in. We won't have those until, like I've said, mid-October. So just keep that in mind.
What about the police union contract? That's the other one that's looming, right?
So that would be a special warrant article. And, that would be in addition to the proposed operating budget.
Okay. So is anybody else?
Is there any warrant articles in that?
There's no warrant articles in this.
Nothing at all.
This is strictly the
Strictly
operating budget at this time.
So this thing could go 3 times what that is.
Well, yeah, I think that's where probably this evening we're, really got to have some good direction from the board on which warrant articles you want to see remain on the article, on the warrant, and how you want to fund them.
None of the other departments have come back with any kind of cutbacks or savings?
No.
No, not that you know of. Okay.
No.
Oh. Absolutely.
The grant acceptance money that was just accepted, that was just accepted this evening for 46,900, and as well as FEMA money for 6,000. Does that impact the tax cap in terms of a positive with revenue?
No, what that grant acceptance will do, it's going to help. It probably, at the most part, it will help us increase the unassigned fund balance if we have, because we collect these unanticipated funds. And so it would create a surplus. Obviously, it's going to offset some of the costs that we've had.
Yep.
So unexpended funds, we hope we'll have unexpended funds because we had some credits, and some of those grant funds are not a direct credit to expense lines. So we could have, some excess revenues. But as we get further into the end of the year, we've had discussions. I think this board may be able to have a discussion as we get a better understanding of what our bottom line budget's looking like, where we could maybe make some more advanced purchases. I know that the police department had some radio equipment. I know the fire department had radio equipment. We had some fire hoses and stuff like that. I'm just not prepared at this point in time to be able to say that we could go ahead and try to purchase those in 2020, opposed to planning to purchase those in the proposed 2021 budget. But I'm hopeful that scenario could play out.
Financially, where are we with the pandemic? Are we all right, or financially?
We're good.
Really?
We're really good. I mean, the biggest overrun that we're experiencing is the fact that we're recovering the health insurance cost at the library.
Yeah, but we got reimbursed for most of that, right?
Not for the
No,
health
that's
insurance,
not reimbursable. So
It's a
that was
memorandum of understanding.
Mike.
Yep.
You agree with that statement? Or looking?
Yeah.
I mean, that's our greatest overage right now is covering that health insurance for the library.
So just for point of reference for the Board of Selectmen, right, the Budget Committee is meeting 5 times in the month of October 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th. The first 3 sessions are review of the budget. The last 2 sessions are voting. I understand the Budget Committee needs a starting point, right? But essentially, as presented at this moment, the budget that's being shifted over to the Budget Committee is $73,294 over the tax cap, which means the Budget Committee needs to find $73,294 at least to be able to submit this budget to the voters. So when we come to vote on the last 2 Thursdays of October, we're going to be looking at 73,000 or more to reduce the tax cap. My preference would be my select board tells me where that money should come from. Otherwise, I'm going to find it. We, as a budget committee, per law, I cannot present a budget that exceeds the tax cap. So I have no choice.
We understand. We understand, Andy.
But you start adding warrant articles to that, and you get
It's gonna-
far in excessive.
So as Mr. Brown has
73,000.
mentioned, you have insurance, which is a big nut that we don't know yet.
Don't have any idea what
You
that
have
is.
the police contract, which is a special article, but it's still a warrant article, which is a big nut, right? I believe the IT manager contract is up for negotiation, right? I mean, there's other factors here that you also need to consider in addition to that 73,000.
So Troy, I got a suggestion. And I've been through this with other boards, being a town employee in other towns. They come to a time and point and they say, go back and see what you can do with your budget. I've had them say it to me. I think
That could be a good idea to have every department head go back.
Go back and see
I mean,
what they could do.
I've seen times when the budget's been frozen, that they could only go a certain amount, 10%, 20%, whatever it was. And it may be that we have to set that number to get the department heads to do it.
This is not to give them hardship, it's to give them reality. Because the budget committee is set in stone. and we are two with the tax cap. Okay? We haven't got the 2 contracts done. We got a lot of hose in the fire department they like to fix or get changed out because it's over a time period. It's not over the actual usage. There's a lot of little things that we may have to look at.
But, you know, I also understand just to balance this, right? It's not all doom
gotta
and
find a
gloom,
simple-
right? Because
No, it's
there
not.
are unanticipated revenues coming in. We just heard of 2, right? That
There you go.
you could encumber,
Yeah.
right, to offset.
Right.
There's additional gopher money coming in, I believe,
Yep.
to the tune of a nice figure that could be used to offset. So, the tax cap, I think we're going to be okay. But over the next month or so, I don't know that we're going to know all the answers.
Until those insurance numbers come in, we're not gonna know anything.
Okay.
You're not gonna know the gopher check that we're hopeful we're gonna receive. I'm doubtful that we'll probably receive that the end of October.
Yeah.
It's been typically a 30-day turnaround. So
It's still
I think you're gonna be, unfortunately for the budget committee's schedule, I think there's work that we can do, but you're gonna get hit with between now and the end of October, we're going to set our tax rate. These figures right now, again, the room and meals tax revenue on the revenue side, I've just held those flat based on last year's. We'll have a better indication of what they're going to come in at when we set our tax rate, and same with the highway block grant. So
The veterans credit,
there's a lot going on.
the veterans credit, was that increased to reflect the warrant article?
So you know what? It's kind of funny. It's part of the tax cap calculation, but when you set your tax rate in 2020, you're going to capture that direct cost of the increase in the credit. So now I'm benchmarking 2021 proposed against actual 2020. So it really has no direct impact to the tax cap. So I will. I mean, I will go back and ask every department to, take another look. I know there are departments where there's no room. There's going to be nothing.
Oh, yeah, we'll be,
I mean, you've got some that are lower than they were last year,
Yeah.
but there are some that are,
Well, I think,
including Board of Selectmen.
just keeping it, and I don't want to be out of line, but when I look at a budget that's $210,639 at this moment over last year, and $150,000 of that is your communication equipment that was voter approved.
Yep.
To me, that's a pretty flat budget.
Yeah.
It's a pretty flat budget. I mean, I commend the department heads at face value, right? I'm sure there's things in there that we're going to talk about, but I commend the department heads at face value for the work and the effort that you put into your budgets, because it is, for all intents and purposes, flat over current year. The question now becomes, because you have that communication equipment rolled into the budget, it's really hurting us at this moment. And now we're trying to make that money up.
got the communication equipment, you got the new firehouse bond, all that adds up.
And if we can't get it there, I'm still in favor of taking the money from the unassigned fund balance to make it zero, so that rather than buy toys, things that we, might need or might not need right now, and maybe push those down the road a little bit. But we need to get it back to where the budget committee can accept it.
Yeah, I
No
mean,
matter what
if
we
I'm
have to
using
do.
last year as a benchmark, right, when I can't, for many of your lines that we're going to review, I can't do averages. And I've had the same conversation with the school, right? That doesn't work for this year. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. So last year, I think we found maybe 50,000 total out of all the budgets. Yeah. I don't know what it's going to be like this year. I speculate it's going to be less than that.
In the IT line, is there any of those expenditures that we can put off or move up?
I think that's the discussion I need to have with my department heads over the next week and a half. It's like, okay, one, do this exercise. What items can we move up and pay for in 2020 if funds become available?
Yep.
And then what items do you have in your proposed budget that could be postponed for this, for 2021? And I think you're going to, I'm hopeful that you're going to gain a lot of traction.
Yeah.
We don't have a big number here, but
Mm.
again, as much accomplishments that you make, at the same time you start getting those numbers back, I have this fear that, you know, you're going to get increased rates and insurances, and we may have to project revenues to come in a little less. Maybe, you know, I'm being conservative here. I'm just trying to really make you aware of where we're at, and hopefully a lot of this, you know, will turn out great. We always have, I think we're all on the same page. We really don't want to use that unassigned fund balance for reducing our, you know, that one-time reduction of the tax rate. It's not the best practice.
No. And I don't think it
But,
should
you
be.
know,
anything.
this might be the year where you might have to go that direction. Not some big number, not something crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we may have to go
It's
in
an
that direction.
unusual
So
year.
you still have got some tools.
Yeah.
And I can bring something back to this board with a really better picture of where we're at with possible reductions and early pre-purchases at your next meeting. And that will be in perfect time and going through. It's always good to go through the budget committee review because they're an extra set of eyes and they have questions and they see things and they have suggestions, and we have taken those suggestions and brought them back to the board.
Vehicle purchases that were voted on this evening for these, right? Is there any vehicle repairs and maintenance now that can drop out of the budget? You know, that were budgeted for those two vehicles. I mean, it might be minor, but it might be a few grand. You know what I mean?
I think you're looking at
$1,000 here and there.
I think that's what you're looking at.
I think Chief is still on the phone, so it could he may answer you. But I mean, the big ones are obviously general government buildings, $157,000 increase, and personnel, which I assume is salaries, which you can't touch salary and benefits.
Well, it's the New Hampshire State Retirement is your big chunk.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sanitation and library. I mean, those are the big ones. Maybe
Unless we figure out a way to sell some fire hydrant.
How come sanitate?
Good one, Richard.
No, don't go there.
yeah, the fire hydrants are the other big one. Yeah.
Has anybody ever taken are we totally locked in on spending $500,000 a year on fire hydrants?
I would like to take the comparison of other communities around and what they're
I mean,
charging.
we don't need to get into that discussion, but
I know.
that just blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, the charge is directly related to whether you're, I believe, Pennachuck East or West.
That's right.
And West pays a lot less than we do.
East.
A lot less. Less than half, right?
Well, later on in my part, I have some news with respect to Pennachuck. So
Okay.
I understand.
So, okay.
All right. Well, that's what we'll do. We'll go back to all departments and boards and committees, ask them to take another look. I'll ask them to identify possible reductions, postponements, and also what items can we actually try to pre-purchase if funds become available, and
Okay.
try to take some action that we did with the police chief this evening. And
Yeah, we got to get some other
hopefully
people
we
on
get
the
our tax
alley.
rate. We get our tax rate
With
set.
Ben.
So I think, that's good for this. I think if we can go through the warrant articles and really get a good sense of where you think this board's at with warrant articles, that can be very helpful as well.
Okay, very well.
Mr. Leary, this is Ben. I just didn't know if I could chime in, and I apologize if I'm speaking out of
Absolutely.
turn. I'm just asking for permission to speak.
You're good to go. This is a free meeting.
So, well, thank you. So I've heard a couple of, we have concerns, right, about the health insurance costs, the workman's comp, what the tax rate's going to be. And then there's the two other things. We referenced the police union. We referenced the IT director's contract. I think we need to address those two issues immediately. If we work with the union, whom I know is willing to work with the town, I think we can send the budget committee, and they can work with real numbers. Let's not divert the IT director's contract. Let's not push off speaking with the union. Let's see, even if we could tentatively agree with the union on year one of their contract, and as long as it's legal, let's do that. Let's have conversation. And I'll also, I'm just going to give a big kudos to John Brunel, because we've been able to function as a town because of everything he's done to set us up with the technology to do remote meetings, conferences, and everything. And I think it shows the value of his position, the value of his expertise, his commitment to the town. So let's, again, just, and who am I to address the board? But I think you could get rid of the concerns with the union if we have a conversation. I think if the board were to address the IT contract moving forward, let's take those off the table so we know. So when we ask our department heads to relook at their budget, we know these issues are already taken care of. I think it would be really beneficial. I would really ask you to consider that, because I'm going to go back and look at my budget again. I'm going to do it again because it's the right thing to do. But I think we could have a conversation with the union. I think Mr. Brunel would be open to dealing with his issues, so we have real numbers, so we can deal with this in real time. And it's just been on my mind because I think he's an asset to how we've been able to function as a town. I know from a police department standpoint, when we call, he's there. If my computer's frozen, I give him a screenshot. Literally within 2 minutes, it's taken care of. So, so Mr. Cutter, before he starts cutting things, he can know, okay, this has been agreed upon. Okay.
I'm somewhat insulted.
Insulted?
You didn't see him here?
So I don't have the screen, so I don't know who's making fun of me or not, but.
You talk about a cutter.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Anyway.
It'd be great if you could.
I think it's important. I'm just asking the board to consider. It's been kind of an open meeting, and I'm going to continue to do things to help you guys. And I think it would, from a perspective of my budget, let's get together with the union and let's just get it done. And we can do that, and they're willing to do it. So that way we can, when it comes down to making hard decisions, we know these other issues are addressed. And if there's going to be an impact on my budget because of the union contract, again, I'll do my best. And I'm trying to, I'm working with you, I'm working with the town, so thank you, Mr. Leary, for letting me put that insight in. Sorry.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
Okay.
So
Thank you guys for all that you do, everyone.
All right, so we're gonna go back to the department heads and see what we can do.
We'll
Okay.
do that.
That's great. Every little bit helps. I mean, I think it was you that said a couple weeks ago, even if it's a couple $100 here or there, it adds up.
Okay, you want to do warrant articles?
No.
Yeah, Mr. Cutter's been waiting.
Just fly on the wall.
Andy, please. I was here last Wednesday too. I know the feeling.
All right, Mr. Brown.
Just bringing these up here. Okay, so obviously the operating budget right now, we know what the status is. That's still under review. Police contract. The town, typically the way police contracts are negotiated, the selectmen will have a negotiating team, so we probably should identify who that's going to be this evening. And usually the union will actually send a formal notice to the town, initiating those discussions. But I think that we have anyone here this evening be like to be part of the negotiating team for the police contract.
Well, you and I are doing IT, right? We're doing John Brunel. Yeah. So does somebody else want to? Huh? You're sitting on your hands? You don't want to get a ticket. I don't know, maybe,
I'll participate.
oh, great.
I got a lot of things going on. I really don't have the time for that right now.
We can check with Steve as well. If not, I mean, I'll sit in if he can't.
Yeah, same here. If you can't get, I'll help too.
Oh, no, you sit on your hands.
That's why we like you.
So I think as far as department heads, I think it's, the police chief, myself, and the finance director.
Okay.
And if we had 2 selectmen,
Okay.
that would be a good negotiating team.
All right. Does that work for you, chief?
All right, still there.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Which one of us do you want?
All right, so.
All right.
On behalf of the men and women of the police union, whoever's going to give them the most,
All right.
we got to have a little humor. Come on, what's 3 hours
Yep.
into that?
We got that.
I was just gonna say, we'll bring Mr. Cutter.
Yeah, no.
Now all my time is free from no more capital improvement meetings.
No, he needs to be home with his family.
My wife would agree. Thank you, Chief.
No, I know the union would recognize any member, and it's going to be a good process. It's going to work out good. I've had a lot of conversation with President Lang and other members about what's going on, especially with the concerns for the next fiscal year, and I think you'll find that I believe it'll be a very smooth negotiation process.
That would be great. Thank you.
I'm happy to report that.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, article number 4 is the town clerk position, where we would take the current part-time position and change that to a full-time position. That would have a tax impact for 2021. In addition to that operating budget we talked about, it would be minimal. Like right now, we're estimating that at $9,500. And of course, someone's going to ask the question, what's it going to cost for the full cost? It's about $18,800
For next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's because this position's already part-time and already receiving a lot of the, 50% of the benefits. So that's why typically you see a full-time position, the cost is much more expensive. It's a new position.
It's not really even a question, but we know that the part-time clerk is very happy in the part-time position and didn't want full-time. So what would that mean to her?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a person.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I know
kind
it's
of
a
a personnel
personnel
matter,
thing.
that.
Don't want to get into that one right now.
I mean, this is not about.
We'll bypass that.
Yeah, this is about, this is, this question is about, does the Board of Selectmen support creating, or changing the part-time position to full-time? It shouldn't, it should be about the position.
It's not about that.
So that would mean 3 full-time positions.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay.
My personal thought is we just brought Amanda on board. Apparently, she's very well trained. I think she's going to have a major impact on helping out in that department. We don't know what the future holds with respect to the part-time position, but I would be in favor of postponing making the part-time full-time, just to get a feel for the impact that Amanda's going to have on the department.
Walking on pretty slippery ice here.
You don't need to take action on this one, but at some point in time, the board's going to need to decide if this is going on.
But it may want to
Special
go
warrant
into a
article.
non-public session when
Okay.
it does.
All right.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Fire truck lease purchase. That's, as you heard in the CIP presentation this evening, it was, we had considerable discussion about the plan and laying out the replacement. Is the first year we had the fire tanker truck, and then the second year of that plan was to replace an engine.
I'm on hold with that. That's my opinion.
I'd agree with that.
What?
Put it on hold for now. The
The fire truck?
Yeah.
Well, definitely.
I agree.
We're talking probably what, 700,000?
Well, it would be a lease purchase payment, 95, estimating right now, about $95,000
For the next 5 years.
for the next,
It's a 5-year lease,
8-year lease.
8 years.
8-year lease.
8 years, yeah.
Now I'm not feeling even better.
And
I
again,
think those big ticket items, at the end, we can talk about it, but at this point,
but I
Right
mean,
now, no.
the big albatross on this is still the $260-something thousand note we're paying, which I think is a really bad loan, but I mean, it's done, but we can't just keep compounding that. Not that they don't need new equipment, but I mean, that's $360,000 a year for the next 8 years, 9 years.
It's a 20-year lease, right?
Not that I would agree or disagree with the board's opinions here, right? So I'm impartial on this completely.
You're a citizen.
But if deputy chief here, if the chief were here, he would remind you at this point, I feel, and I feel obligated to say, because he's not
I
here,
understand.
right? That if you purchase a truck, it still takes a year to acquire said truck.
Yep.
Right. So
I'm
even though it's
familiar.
on for 2022 or 2021, he wouldn't have that vehicle in service until 2022.
I understand.
I mean, these articles, you need to understand too, is the Board of Selectmen can support these articles because you believe that you need to start taking the steps along with the CIP plan. You know that it may take 2 years before you even get this tanker truck here. It's just that the article, most likely, the Budget Committee will not be able to recommend it.
But on the other hand, it's nice to see that we work together. I was just thinking of the whole town.
I don't know if you're ever going to have, with the tax cap that you have now, I don't know if there's ever going to be a day in the future that some
We
of
could do
these
that.
large purchases at $100,000, call it, or
Maybe we got to look at why the tax cap was put there in the first place. Why is it there? Maybe we should go back with another
Different
piece of.
discussion for a different day at this point. But
I
it
know.
was 5.5%. It was changed to 175,000. And in listening to the New Hampshire Municipal Association budget
Yeah.
sessions that I just sat in with two other committee members last week, right? Other towns like Derry and Laconia measure it based upon inflation rates. So it's not a fixed dollar amount. Now in COVID, that's actually even worse than 175,000. But in
That's
any
correct.
other normal year, it's actually better.
Yeah, no comment there. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'd be curious to what other towns that are our size with our, I mean, we don't have any industry in town to speak of,
Good, nothing.
what they do. I mean,
The fixed
how-
dollar amount seems to be kind of the oddball out.
The oddball out,
It's more of a percentage.
more of a percentage. Might be worth looking into.
well, there's not really any towns that have a tax cap. It's typically your cities or your towns that have a town charter.
Right. If you look at Derry
So
and
it's-
Laconia,
it's-
they're also
Derry
huge
has a
budgets.
town manager, town charter. They're operated by a town council. So, the town council has a lot more authority. So these, in their charters, they've written in the tax caps and
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're all in agreement to just put it on hold for this year. So we can address it next year.
And then we have the plow truck lease purchase. So these two articles here are identical. One is to replace that, what was it, the 2000 International plow truck. And the other one is a new truck that we'd be adding to the fleet. Its purpose is to try to just keep up with the growth that we've experienced in the Department of Roads, but also to bring in, we're really finding that along with the growth, we're having a hard time finding contractors that have plow trucks. And when we do find contractors that are willing to operate our equipment, they don't always have their CDL. So the new truck would, one, add a plow truck to our fleet, and also be a vehicle that would not require a CDL license to operate. So it provides a lot more flexibility to the department to be able to still be able to reach out there and get operators for the vehicle. We have a good quality plow truck that's part of the fleet, opposed to, you know, I don't know if you've actually gone and taken a look at the condition of some of the private contract trucks we're using, and they're not getting they're not getting newer. I can tell you this. They're getting older and less reliable. We have breakdowns during storms. These private contractors trucks, they break down, and it causes impacts to the operation. I mean, I don't know. Kevin's the one out there at 2:00 in the morning. We have the breakdowns and trying to recruit the operators and trucks. So I don't know if you want to add anything.
I mean, it's much easier to maintain our own vehicles. You know what I mean? I know that my 7 vehicles are going to roll off the road in tip-top condition. You know, and I have a truck down in the yard right now where the drive shaft's falling out, and I'm going to be over. I haven't even written him in because, you know what I mean? I don't know if that truck's going to be functional. Even if it is functional, how long it's going to be functional. So having our own equipment is without a doubt the best way to fly and put drivers in it. I can send you out pictures of the plow unit that's going on the new 5500. It's got a 9-foot wing, 10-foot front blade, and it looks just like our big trucks. It's just a little bit smaller. But it's the way to go.
That's Article 7.
So we have 2 articles. Article 6 is a plow truck lease purchase for adding a new truck to the fleet. And Article 7, which would be to replace one of our old trucks, the 2000 International.
Okay, just show one thing. If we do make a sworn article in March, that'll come up March, and you know the vehicle's going to go through a whole nother winter. The ones we have now, so it'll be a whole year before we get that.
Yep.
You know, if we put off, then that 2000 is 2 years out, 2 storms. 2 seasons out.
Okay.
Again, it's just right now with the budget the way it is, and we're trying to get to the tax cap. I mean, this is going to put us up well over it again.
I mean, one of the things I talked to Kevin about, and I know some of the Board of Selectmen have reached out to me and expressed concern over the backhoe. It was discussed at the last meeting. As you recall, the backhoe, we've written the article so that we would purchase it with cash, just like we did the plow truck last year.
Yeah.
And I just think that in this department, the current state of the fleet, we really need to continue to make progress in updating the equipment. So if the backhoe went away this year and we had one article for a plow truck and we used the unassigned fund balance to purchase that, I think that would go a long way in trying to address the situation in the highway department.
I think that is a good solution because you're being reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, the backhoe stays where it is, we fix it. One truck we purchase. And go from there. You can use the assigned fund balance to bring the cost down. That'll make it better on the cap. Okay, that's a thought. That's how I feel about it.
I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I would like to use the unassigned fund balance to pay off the deficit and the tax cap before we buy anything. That being said, if the board was in agreement with that, I mean, I would be okay with it, and we drop one for this year anyways.
Yep.
It'd be just, you can still change. It's not that you're committed to this. I mean, it's something as we start to try to
I say
get
keep
the articles
one on.
lined up. At the end of the day, when you're not comfortable using the unassigned fund balance, because now we got tax rates and all this, you can still change your opinion, but at least it allows us to start figuring out, are we going to at least purchase 2 plow trucks, and we're going to buy a backhoe? And, those questions would be nice to try to move forward with a little general direction.
That's why I suggested one, to at least go somewhere and get the fleet back up.
Yeah, and I think the backhoe can wait because that really 7,600 hours is usually the threshold for a backhoe. I mean, so we've got a ways to go on that.
Yeah.
But I would be more inclined to go with one, like Kevin said. But I'd like to, again, use the money to pay off a deficit. Because if you haven't seen that guy glare at you before, it's not pretty.
I'm getting all the zingers tonight.
Who are you referring to?
Oh, no.
He's pointing at you.
Just turn around and glance.
So,
That'd
you know,
be okay.
I can, if that's kind of the general consensus, the next time you see this, what you'll see is one plow truck lease purchase gone,
Okay.
the backhoe gone, and a proposal to purchase a plow truck, the same exact truck that we purchased this year, with the unassigned fund balance.
Okay.
The board still reserves the right to take that. We have a lot of time between now and December to remove that.
Mhm. I think that's being responsible and working with what we have in front of us.
I concur with that, Bob.
All right. Human Services and Health Agencies, this number will be available hopefully at the end of October. Get our letters in. The committee needs to review the request and report back to this board.
Leave it in.
The General Assistance Expendable Trust Fund, that's just there as a placeholder. At this point in time, I think I can remove it, and just to help, get a better solid number of warrant articles, just with the understanding that if something goes wrong in November and December, I mean, I don't know what the deadline is for really finalizing the warrant, but we will all know that we expended funds. But to be honest with you, if we get our grant funds, we get a good handle on our budget, it's quite possible that we will charge whatever general assistance we can to the operating budget.
Mhm.
There's no appropriation, but we'll charge it and try to protect that expendable trust fund balance of, that we have.
That's the one that we have if somebody's in need.
It's,
that we
well,
have to-
remember,
we have to help them.
so this is a new fund. It was a warrant article this year,
Mhm.
and it was to get the general assistance annual request out of the operating budget, because one year we'd ask for $10,000 and we'd spend 900.
Yeah.
And, and so as the thought process was between the Selectmen and Budget Committee, can we have an expendable trust fund? We'll just monitor what the annual expenditures are, try to maintain a $10,000 balance.
I think it's wise to keep that in there because the COVID situation right now with the rentals and some of the stuff going on, you're going to find some.
Well, what I'm saying is if we're able, first of all, we haven't seen any requests. So the activity hasn't been there. My concern is October, November, December. But if the requests aren't astronomical and we can afford to charge the operating budget,
If you can do
I
that.
would do that and not touch this expendable trust fund. Preserve the $10,000 for 2021.
Okay. Okay.
That's kind of what
Yeah.
my thought process is.
I agree with that. Okay. That I do agree with. I'm sorry. I retract myself.
As a new guy on the block, do selectmen get involved in,
In the requests,
yes,
it's kind of 50-50. So when some of the straightforward ones, we'll administer it. But when it's a situation where it doesn't, this application, the assistance may go on for a couple months, and it may be rental assistance and, for $1,000 or whatever, then the Board of Selectmen's involved. But if it's a one-time, hey, look, my electric's going to be shut off and I just need help with this one payment. I've got checks lined up that's going to do this. I just got a job. And typically we'll do that administration, but anything that's going to be a long-term commitment, the Board of Selectmen's involved.
I
We
know
don't have a lot of activity.
Selectman Jewett used to be the welfare officer and
A lot of bus tickets.
one-way bus.
I'm not saying another word.
That's why there's a law against that.
She used to make visits, and the first thing she'd do is open the refrigerator. If there's any beer in there,
You're cut off.
Yeah. Checking into the Eagle Motel.
All right.
Okay, guys, next.
Where we at?
Okay, so now you're,
It's a public meeting.
Yep.
so now you're into articles that we're talking about using the unassigned fund balance. And I think we all know that, yeah, we've got a lot of articles this year. We're talking about using unassigned fund balance, and I understand we all need to be aware of that. The road improvements, that warrant article, trying to bring that back at a level of $200,000 for road improvements. That's what you heard and saw in the CIP plan. We have a paving program, a 6-year paving program we put together. It really is important that we have the 200,000. The big question is, I don't know if we can continue, if we take this step, I don't know if every single year we can actually sustain the 200,000.
Do you think that money is going to remain what it used to be?
That's my concern is over the next couple of years, I don't know if, I don't believe our turn back is going to be as large. We had $458,000. The fund balance grew $487,000 in 2019. We had a great year. We turned money back. We had excess in revenues. So you had a good surplus, and that fund balance grew $487,000. The balance right now is $2.2 million. I don't know. I don't believe we're going to have that type of turn back going forward.
Wouldn't it make more sense to be, what type of projects do you have on board right now?
There are a lot of
21.
I'd have to bring the list up, but I mean, it's really some shim and overlay, some grind jobs, but they're roads.
Wouldn't
they're not.
It make more sense to come at the people with a half of that, 200, give you 300,000 instead of the whole nut in the first year, and then the following year?
That's what I was kind of thinking, that we may want to consider at this point in time that this number be 100,000 and see what can happen. Because I've always told the board back when we eliminated this warrant article that we would gradually grow into that fire station bond payment, and that we would start moving towards the 200,000 in increments. So we're starting off right now at 0.
Right.
I had hoped to have been at 100,000 last year, but we didn't need to because we had other funding sources. I think it would be real good progress if you were able to do 100,000.
I think that makes
sense. If you look
sense.
at that next year, if you can get to 150, you try to get to 150. You need to be at 200.
Right.
But
then you could maybe take your plan for paving and
our plan for paving too is
meet it.
Our numbers are, we'd like to think they're conservative. So when we get our real pricing, even though we lost 50,000, we might make it up in just a nice competitive price.
Yeah, we make the numbers a little fat.
Good to know.
I mean,
I could support 100.
You're on record.
I mean, the price of petroleum products. Well, your paving program, we have a contractor that gives us a very competitive price. But even with that being said, the cost of petroleum is what's going to drive that price up or down.
It's been continuous for the last few years.
Oil's pretty cheap, right?
I know, and that's why I'm thinking, 150,000 is going to still get us a lot of pavement.
What I want.
Yeah, it's about.
I didn't say 100.
But I'd like to see it 100,000, not 200,000.
I would agree with that.
You good with that?
I will agree, and the reason why I think the town made the mistake because of the firehouse tax banks and stuff like that. I'm sorry. This has affected the road by doing that. I'll go 100. I got no problem with that.
Yeah, and we'll eventually work it back up.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a great idea, Troy.
Any feeling?
Okay.
Jack?
I'm getting there. So the next one is Technology Communication Expendable Trust Fund. I think at this point in time, you know, again, this was just a heads up. This might show its face towards, you know, November-ish. It all depends on the outcome of the radio communication tower project. But I think at this point in time, you know, I can remove it. We're all aware that it might show its face again, but at least to clean up the warrant.
Okay.
The Property Revaluation Expendable Trust Fund. This would be a warrant article that would, one, establish this fund, and two, fund it. What I'm recommending is that we try to establish this fund, and over the next 4 years, we try to put $25,000 away in it, so that when you get to that 5th year and you need to do the update, the funds are available. We would use the unassigned fund balance.
Mm-hmm. I have no problem with that.
I'm happy.
Yep. Oh, good. Are you guys okay with that?
Is it an unassigned fund balance?
We would use the unassigned, so it's unrestricted. It's not dedicated for anything. It can be used.
Yeah, all right.
That's why they call it unassigned.
Yep.
The next article is Health and Dental Care Expendable Trust Fund. This is something that we came out of our discussion with the library trustees. And, you know, this article could possibly go away if the board just goes on record saying we're not going to, after December 31st, we're not going to, you know, honor our MOU anymore. Or if you know, want to keep it, and the intent of this article was to cover any unanticipated health and dental insurance premium costs for all town and all library employees. And it would just be, we do a new hire, and or it's basically we have our rates. What we don't know is when someone's on a buyout and then they have to join the plan. It's a family plan, and we doing a new hire. We had a single, and now it's a family plan. Those are the kind of costs that are just really hard to absorb in the operating budget.
You've told us why.
We always have done it on our side. I've never had, you know, at least the 5 years I've been here, I haven't had the impact.
You explained that once before, why the library will not pay that.
So there's an agreement between the board and the library trustees that any of their unplanned health-related costs, the selectmen would cover that cost in our operating budget until the next fiscal year.
And
I think
then what happens? They put it in their budget?
They need to put it in their
Next
budget.
Budget year.
So, but I think the reason that MOU was developed was, I do believe the library trustees, I wasn't here, but I mean, I believe that this discussion occurred at the budget committee selectman level, and the compromise was, well, you know what? The town will just, if that happens, library, we'll help you out. We should be able to try to absorb that in our operating budget, and it made the warrant article go away that year.
You had said something a couple of minutes ago about if they had to buy somebody out, their health plan had to buy it out, and then they join back in. Are they allowed to do that?
So if
at least in
someone-
the same year, in the same fiscal year, because we had that last year when we voted to do a buyout because it was cheaper than paying for the
Paying for the
insurance.
plan, so.
But can they then a couple
So we
months
do-
later
It's a
say,
qualifying event.
I mean, how do we do it?
like say they lost their job and now they want to join
So-
again? Well, we've already given them the money. Do they have to pay that back?
No, because that would have been just like if you paid for their health insurance during those same months.
The buyout is calculated out 52 weeks. So every single week,
Yeah.
if you're on buyout, you're getting a payment for the buyout.
Mhm.
If the next week I have to change my plan, then now I'm having it deducted from my check. So we don't do the buyout's not payment in advance. It's prorated and calculated out for 52 weeks.
Okay.
Well, the question today is, do we want it on it? I have a question.
Why couldn't the library put an amount into their budget to cover something like that?
They could, and I think
Very simply,
and I
I would
think
imagine.
well, it's not that simple because they're gonna have to increase their budget, and then they're gonna have a discussion with the budget committee, but they could come forward and ask to have their own expendable trust fund.
And they're part of our tax cap.
I'm not, the library is a town function. Correct? The town employees.
They're
their own entity.
They're their own entity. They have their own library
best of both
trustees that
worlds.
make their own policies and procedures, and
budgets.
It's like the school.
Don't always, they
Like
like
school.
school employee. Same thing as
Same thing.
they're like a school employee. Yes.
So they need in their budget to eliminate this thing is to just project like we do. The town projects, the school projects.
Yeah.
Okay, about what one goes, two goes, three, what's going to happen.
So when they have a change,
It's always a
it's-
surprise.
I can't speak for them, but my guess is that when they have a change and it's an increase of 15, 20,000, just for example, this year, we're at 26,000 estimated
What we,
by the end of the year. They're saying they can't absorb that kind of cost in their operating budget.
Because they do have a smaller budget compared to us in that school. Oh,
The delta percentage is much greater for them when
Right.
considering their own
Yeah.
as compared to the big slush fund, which is
well,
No, we don't consider it slush.
I wouldn't call it.
I slipped that in.
You slipped that in. You're getting me ready for budget committee Thursday night.
I would say
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I'll put it in. Leave it in? Yeah,
Leave it in for now.
leave it in for now. We can always address it later. You don't have to agree. It's okay.
I don't know how to agree or disagree.
So
I mean,
this article though, just so we know, it's not just library. This article would be
The town
for
as well.
town and library employees. So it would be a safety net that we would have if it happened on the town side or the library side.
And is it going to happen every year?
No,
Okay,
it doesn't happen much.
okay. Then I'm okay with it. for a
okay,
long time.
all right. I
Say
agree.
that.
Yeah, well, leave those
Okay.
words. But I mean,
Leave it.
Don't agree, but I agree.
Leave it. You have someplace to be, Andy?
But
It's good to see you, though. It is.
I think it's one of those funds that, like the general assistance, we
Yeah,
would
it's the same
definitely everyone
issues.
would try to use the operating budget. The last resort would be tapping into a trust fund. It's like that for our solid waste fund, and nobody wants to go use the capital reserve funds. It's the last resort.
Okay.
We got 4 more left. Can you do them in 2
All right,
minutes?
the Recreation Facilities Expendable Trust Fund,
2 minutes.
$50,000. And so this article, this one, like I told you last week, this is all coming from me.
Yeah.
I had conversations, some feedback from the Rec Commission where they wanted some specific money to make improvements to Town Hall and some things to Dare Pond, Arroyo Memorial Park. I just thought, you know what? Wouldn't it be good to have an expendable trust fund for all rec facilities and buildings so that they can repair things, make renovations, and replace items like old fences and gates and sheds and stuff like that.
how much you talking?
So I'm talking. So
50,000.
I picked $50,000, and the reason why I picked that because I know that initially they're
Heating
probably
system.
right now looking at about $30,000 that for some improvements to Talent Hall. The real concern is the
Back
floor.
deck and
The floor, they want to try to do something to the floor, and it's going to be, first of all, they need to do a little bit of structural analysis to see really what they've got, and then from there, figure out how you go forward.
I honestly can tell you what it's like underneath that whole floor.
Yeah.
It's only about yay high. and you gotta do a lot of crawling. You've got a lot of cement blocks and piers here and there, and so they're all starting to move. It's more than what you think.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit of work in there. Simply tear the floor out, pour concrete down, or fill it up and pour concrete. You've got to system. You know, there's many ways of looking at that, but you've got to do an analysis on that bill
Before they do anything, it's got to be.
before you do anything, because there's more to it than what meets the eye there.
Right.
No one ever wanted. The only people that went underneath me were the prisoners. They went underneath and took all the insulation and put it all back up too.
I can tell you right now that Talon Hall, it's not in the CIP. You know, the voters sent a message last year. They're not looking. They're not willing to build a new community center.
Nope.
So Talon Hall is all you have, and you need to. You got to start looking at it.
I don't think
You're up against police stations, fire engines, plow trucks, schools.
Everything came in at once this time, didn't it?
Goes back to my comment from capital improvement, right? About Band-Aids and kicking it down the road.
Yep.
My only comment on this one, I'm sorry to interject, is more than half of their budget, right? If they have a need for Talon Hall, just put out the need on a warrant article. Don't create a slush fund.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know,
That's
and maybe the rec commission, they could weigh in on this so they can be very clear as to what it is they want to do. So
We haven't heard from them.
no. So
Okay.
Chairman Weber is on the rec commission. We'll get them in here and have a real discussion about what they want to do at Talon Hall.
Well, I have an intimate understanding of the history of Town Hall.
Yeah, you do.
I have fallen through the floor. I've been under there, and I'm not convinced that we need to do that much. That's just my opinion.
I can fill it with salt.
I mean, at the time I was crafting this language too. We had the fire escape that needed being addressed. I think you've seen it. And now it looks like, the Air National Guard will be doing some work there. We'll buy the material. So there's a lot of things. There's some gate systems that we'd like to address. So that people can get into the playground, they can get into the Dairy Pond.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not in the fan until we sit down with the rec commission a little bit more. I'm not in favor of this because there's too many open things to it.
We keep having these little funds at $50,000 a pop.
Yeah. I really don't think I'm ready for this one.
No, me either.
No.
Okay.
Mr. LaSalle's?
Not only no,
You'll be sorry you asked.
That's okay.
Don't go next to the floor.
Okay. So I guess that's a no.
Okay. I understand the need. I understand the people we used to use volunteers, Jack, to fix everything today. No one's, but, Army Corps of Engineers, I'm glad they're doing something back there.
I remember when Mr. LaSalle's first started the renovation of that place, like 30 something years ago. He came over to my house and asked me if I'd paint it for him. and he allowed us, my softball team, to use it to play basketball during the winter. And it had no heat. So we brought in heaters. We brought in 2 torpedo heaters, and it turned the floor into a skating rink because there was no insulation. Never seen more guys that you thought were athletic fall flat on their back.
we've gotten more good out of that Talon Hall from the money that we've put into it.
It was all volunteers too.
I think we spent $13,000 to get it
running,
to be able to use,
The
and
heating
it was
system
ready
isn't
to fall
finished.
down.
2 train systems outside work well.
Right? Roll roof.
Yeah, Roland did that.
Yeah.
And I just
They get all his contractors together.
and I had it done a few years ago when I was here. We had it redone.
Anyway.
All right.
Bedtime.
Yep.
Okay. So let's see here. Just two other articles. The fire station bond proceeds. We talked about this at the last meeting, taking the $23,000 of interest, asking the citizens to appropriate that and make it as a payment towards the bond. So
I'll go with that one.
but we all discussed that at the last.
I know we did.
Yeah. And so the only catch with this one is you can't in the proposed operating budget.
Can't reduce it.
I really can't reduce the operating budget by this amount because you don't know what the outcome of the vote will be. I mean, I know that this will pass, but you just don't know.
It's a guess.
Who's going to say no? But I mean,
It's a guess.
Yeah.
We do a lot of that.
Throw a dart at the board.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. So that one's going to stay.
Yeah. And then
Has to.
the fire facilities fund. So shall the town vote to discontinue the fire facilities capital reserve fund created in 2000? Take all those $612 right now, funds and accumulated interest, and you transfer it to the building systems expendable trust fund. And that's the fund that has no we can use them on all of our town
I agree with that.
It's just trying to close there's no sense having a fire facility slush fund laying around with $612.
Buy some hose.
Paperwork nightmare.
Housekeeping.
Okay.
And solar exemption.
Yep. We all know what that is. Okay. Very good.
Okay.
So we're getting there, right?
Well, this is a record. It's not 11 o'clock yet. And Troy, you got so much enthusiasm in you by looking at you.
What do we got left?
You have one for meeting time, but I don't know.
Oh, that's yeah.
You want to start the
So I
meeting
just
at
wanted to
6?
Talked about that, 6:30. We all.
You guys all good with 6:30 because that was
I'll
our.
email you. I thought we had.
No, I know, but I just wanted to make sure.
It was 6:30. You forgot.
Okay.
6:30.
You
All right.
forgot.
So I have one last item in the TA report.
Yeah.
And this is for a request from the Christmas in Litchfield group. They've met. They've already started planning for their event. Last year was their first event and went off really well. But with COVID-19, they're already way ahead of the curve, already starting to plan. And what they're planning to coordinate this year is going to be a virtual event. And so they would like to be able to use our town center, I don't know what you call it, but where the pavilion is. And they're going to decorate that area up. Have a virtual tree lighting and really create a scene where people can come in and do selfies and take pictures and stuff like that. And they just
Beautiful idea.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. And their date is December the 5th. And they just want to make sure the Board of Selectmen fine with them using that location and with the date.
Yeah.
And then they'll start planning from there. I don't
Yeah,
foresee
great.
any problems with it.
Yep. Great idea.
They did it last year.
They did it down at the Dara Pond,
They did a
but,
good job.
but this year they'll do it here and it'll be more of a
Place
virtual.
was mob that night.
Okay.
And there's plenty of parking out there.
Yeah.
That's not.
Wear your boots.
Wear your boots. Yeah. So I think
So
that's
that's all I
about
have.
it. All right.
Thank God.
So
Selectmen's reports.
yeah, selectmen reports. Mr. LaSalle.
I don't have a report first.
I gotta
Last time, kind of an aside, I talked about Mrs. Jewett and doing something. And since then, we found out that she went into the hospital and had a back operation. And it has been remarkable. She's really improved significantly. The problem is she's gone through about 12 months of not being able to stand up and so forth. So her
Legs.
strength is really bad. To make a long story short, I talked with Troy, and what we're tentatively planning is on the 19th, we're going to have a tribute to Pat Jewett here in this room, where we're going to invite people to come in and give a video expressing their appreciation of all Mrs. Jewett has done, an upbeat type of thing. Talking with Robbie Fay, it looks like people can tape something ahead of time and incorporate this into it. I've talked with Nancy, who's Pat's oldest daughter, and she thinks it's a marvelous idea. Pat is stimulated by people, interaction with people, and over this period, she's had very little of that. And she also needs to feel appreciated, and goodness knows she deserves it. So tentatively at 5 o'clock on the 19th of October, I think that's what we talked about, right? Before the selectmen's meeting, we're going to have people in assembly line fashion come in and give a brief video of what Pat has meant to them and so forth, and bring pictures in and so forth.
What's the date on that again?
19th, Monday the 19th. It's before a selectmen's meeting.
Okay. Very good.
The other thing is I've made contact with Penachuk about rates. And I was talking with the Office of Consumer Advocate, and he says, oh, by the way, they put in for a rate increase.
Yeah.
So he sent me a letter, which I put on social media. Basically, it gives us an opportunity to be a party to the rate increase. And what I'd like to do is to stimulate a lot of, maybe form some sort of committee of townspeople to provide a unified attack so we can go to the PUC and get some sort of not only knock down the rate increase, but maybe get some reduction, because that's part of it also. I don't know whether we covered this earlier, but Representative Bohm and I have put in legislation that would force utilities to pay the water bills. For instance, the St. Gobain thing, it wouldn't be restricted to St. Gobain, but in a situation like that, where they obviously polluted the water and had to provide a new water for somebody that had a perfectly fine well, now they have a water bill. Well, the legislation would cause them the polluter to pay the water bill, in addition to all the hookups and so forth. That would be for a period, maybe like 5 years, or until the house is sold. So who knows where that's going to go, but we've submitted that. And the other thing is I met with Jim Spots, who is kind of honcho in the baseball, the field at Jeff Lane is getting the Air Guard to come in, Pease to come in and work on that. And he asked for my participation in that, because I've got some history with that. And so it looks as though that's moving forward. And in addition, they're going to be working on Talent Hall. So that's that's all I have.
Very good. Okay.
I don't meet until October 1st.
Okay. Mr. Lynch?
I'll tell you all about it tomorrow. We're meeting tomorrow. We haven't had one since.
And we are in budget season. We're going to see a lot of Mr. Cutter
Yes.
every Thursday from now till Doomsday.
At the end of the year anyway. Yes.
We get it done. Yep. So it's a busy time of the year.
Only money.
Oh, you're working Christmas Eve?
Why not?
I'm reminded of one of my childhood heroes, a fellow by the name of Everett McKinley Dirksen, who happened to be the senator from my district in Illinois. And he said during the 60s, he said, $1 million here and $1 million there. Before long, you're talking some real money.
So I think that about wraps it up for tonight. Anybody have anything else to add? No? Okay. That being said, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
I
motion.
gotta say it. Make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll let Jack. He likes those.
Motion by
Second the
Mr.
motion.
Pinciero, second
like
by
to do
Mr.
that.
LaSalle's. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0-0.
Richard's included.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.